it seems like if Chris Rock would have said something to her in a threatening manner or in a in an angry way, I could see maybe your point. But again, it was a joke at at the Oscars, right? You're expected to get ribbed.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Do you guys think that like the expectation for the level of shots that you have to take is the same as like, let's say, a Comedy Central roast when you're at the Oscars?
You can't deny that like the notion of protecting your woman is very real, and it is sexist. It's just plain and simple. And I think it's too hard to defend the opposite. And I think
can you stop jumping in every 4 seconds?
Thank you for defending my honor. Not sexist at all.
It's just annoying the fuck out of me.
I'm just fucking with you. Also, I think the joke wasn't really funny. It was just like it was so surface layer. It just wasn't fun. It was just like the joke is you're bald. It's like that's it. That's the best you can come up with, bro. Come on.
When it comes to the slap, hey man, there's social consequences for stuff. We wouldn't be talking half the shit that we do in the debate sphere if we thought some motherfucker was about to come up and slap us for what we're saying. I think that shit was just like the same kind of social consequences we want to see around shit. I have no problem with it. That's it.
I see. You guys keep throwing around the word insurrection as though there was some codified, coordinated effort between the administration and the people who were in the Capitol building. Okay.
Well, there was.
That's
Can we not, dude? Can we not?
Finish.
You're right. It was just a freedom parade.
An appearance of an obstruction of justice actually is a big deal, and that tradition of legal theorists that do make that argument, there are a lot of them across the board. That's not like a liberal or conservative thing. That's more of an ethics thing.
Kevin, it's really not worthwhile to jump in every time they're trying to give their answer, because right now they'll tell you the baseline that you need to argue against. You keep trying to just say he should recuse over and over, and this precedent has been set, but that argument's not working. So why not listen to what we need to appeal to them before you just keep jumping in?
Because I don't appeal to goobers on goober terms.
Everybody, welcome to the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. Tonight we've got a list of very interesting topics, some of them not even exclusively political for the first time ever. Now we're going to we needed to make it easier for React streamers like Denims, you know?
Exactly. Thank you for being so considerate.
You're welcome. We are not sexist here. Small bit, but just a small bit. Anyway, so, rules, everybody should know them by now. I don't even know why I need to repeat them. But it's simple. Number one, you don't speak over me. When I'm talking, I'm only going to be moderating. Trust me, I'll be doing much more on Twitter, hopefully, than on this panel. That's the first thing. The second rule is that there will be no attacking anybody's immutable characteristics. I'm sorry for all of our liberals on here, but you cannot go after somebody for being a white-presenting Asian. That's not something we're going to be allowing today.
That's my number one strat.
And for all the conservatives,
I gotta go, man. I gotta go. I can't stay.
And for all the conservatives, you gotta be easy on my guy Rhizome, okay? So just throwing that out there. Wonderful.
Yes.
Besides that, we're gonna have a notepad if you need to speak, but you're having trouble because it's a round table and it can be pretty difficult to get your voice in there. Especially since most of you are toxically masculine. Just raise your hand and I'll write your name down and make sure eventually you'll be able to talk. Are there any questions about the rules? Wonderful. Okay, so today's topic is, and then I'm gonna let you guys do intros, but just think about what you want to say on this during this intro period. The first topic is gonna be, was Will Smith smacking Chris Rock justified? Very interesting topic. So I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves and then they can give their intro. I'm going to start with our maple syrup loving friend in the top left-hand corner.
Were we doing intros or just like answer to the question?
Intro and then answer the question.
Okay. Hi, I'm Bryce, BRYSLIVE. I am probably the most scuffed streamer because I don't really stream much recently, but it's just because I'm finishing up school for the term. But I will during the summertime. I do like a lot of philosophy, politics, economics, psychology, and all kinds of like random shit. Trying to kind of avoid the melodrama shit that everybody covers, but I feel like I'm probably gonna get sucked into it and dragged into it and forced into it. But yeah, I think I don't think we should attack or punch or do anything on like big public venues, especially if it's comedians. That's pretty much it. Like, just don't hit people even when you get mad.
Okay. And I know I got a lot of heat for my opinion on this, so I just want to make it clear for everybody. I will not be debating today, but I do want to note that everyone's wrong. It was justified for the reason that it was funny. That I just want to make sure everybody knows that in advance. That is the number one reason why it was justified, is because it was funny, and that's how all things work. Is if it makes more people laugh than get hurt, then it's okay. We're gonna throw it over to Denims. Denims is not able to talk. I don't know why.
Because I'm a professional streamer, just like
Very
you,
professional.
Dylan.
I'll assume you didn't win an award at the award show. I'm just gonna take a swing at that.
I'm gonna assume you weren't there. Oh, I know that you weren't there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Denims. I do politics Monday through Friday, and I do React content on weekends. And the Will Smith stuff, I've seen like varying stuff on. Like I've seen some people talking about how it's like, you know what, white people shouldn't even be fucking talking about this shit because you don't know what it's like between like the black community, and you know, maybe you shouldn't be making those comments. So I feel pretty stressed to talk about it, but I do think it was justified for being funny, and I also think it was justified because I think comedians need to have more fear. You know, I feel like they don't have enough fear in their lives, and we need to implement some fear. That's it.
Based. Now I'm gonna throw it over to Half Baked Takes.
Okay, so I'm Todd from Half Baked Takes. I'm basically just a centrist and individualist. I don't really stream. I'm currently a grad student, getting my MPA. It's public administration. I'm currently interning for a member of the House. So, you know, when I'm not busy, I like to yell at people on these debate panels. As far as it goes with the Will Smith and Chris Rock thing, I think it's funny that everybody that says like that this was okay because, you know, you're supposed to defend your woman or defend your wife or whatever. Yeah, if you come under physical attack, maybe. But he obviously just got a joke tossed her way, and he overreacted. But I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say on this, because I don't think many people are on Will Smith's side.
Wonderful. I'm gonna shake it up. Kevin Castley.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, so hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Castley. I'm the host of Superpower Broadcasting. We stream 7 days a week to Twitch and upload content to YouTube. I do streams mostly covering issues of foreign policy, news, and we also do gaming streams as well. I'm going to be starting Sunday night, Political Compass, 216 questions, so tune in for that. That's probably going to take a month to get through off and on. We also do a show, Ghoul Gang Rising, every Saturday night, where we go over the worst foreign policy takes of the week with my co-host Spooky Nukies for that show. It's good to be here. So as far as it relates to this particular issue of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, I agree with Dylan. I thought it was funny. I thought the sound, basically the audio sort of a sound from that, it made me lol. It was great. And the thing is, I think it was also justified. It was justified on the basis that it was funny, obviously. But also I thought that the joke was, given the alopecia, it was in poor taste. But I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you need to defend your wife or whatever, as if it's just like a gender role sort of basis. I think it would have been equally as funny, and I think it probably would have been even more, epic if she had gone up there and slapped him. I would have laughed at that too. But he got bapped, like was bapping, got banned from Twitter. It was funny. So yeah, okay. Got bapped.
Bapped indeed. We're gonna throw it over to Heem to see if he can bap the topic.
Okay. Fuck, man. I know there's gonna be a lot of memes in this topic, but I kind of want to like start off my intro in a little bit of a serious way. Now, people like Dylan, I don't know if we're allowed to attack the moderator at all, but people like Dylan will tell you that it was funny. I don't really think it was funny at all. What do you still watch Three Stooges, Dylan? Like, bro, time has moved on. That kind of comedy, get out of here with that. Okay, so that's my first thing. He was wrong for slapping him, obviously, but I will say that like it's admirable to stand up for your wife. I'm not sure who the person to my. I'm sorry, I forgot. Person with the red mic. What was your name? Sorry.
Half Baked Takes or Todd.
Oh, Half Baked Takes. Sorry,
Yeah.
Half Baked Takes said that they weren't under like physical. She wasn't under physical attack or something like that. And I think that that's not the only circumstance that people can stand up for their spouse. I personally have had a situation in my personal life where like there was a severe level of unprofessionalism displayed towards my fiance, and I later like called the manager and like actually spoke to them and was like, hey, listen, just so you know, like this very unprofessional thing happened. So I think that like it's it's admirable to try and your team, you're supposed to look out for each other and shit. And then next, I want to say Chris Rock, I expect more from him. He's not a hack. He's one of the greatest comedians of all time. He doesn't need to resort to like my standard for comedians is always be funnier than the funniest guy at an office. The kind of joke that he told about Jada Pinkett Smith is something I would expect someone to say at the office, like some very surface level joke. I expected a little bit more from him. And then in general, like people say, oh, they're celebrities, what does it matter? I think that's kind of cringe, like what does it matter if they're celebrities or not celebrities? They're still human beings. And then also it was cringe that Will Smith laughed at the joke first. I don't think anyone's really like that's the worst part, is that he laughed at the joke first, and then he 2 seconds later he gets up and he's angry. So like I don't know, maybe it would have been more gangster if he never laughed at the joke. Anyways,
I just want to give one response. Yes, I do find violence still funny. If Danny DeVito tackled Mike Pence tomorrow, we would all be laughing at that clip for a week. Okay, violence can be
you
funny.
also think those stupid fucking the slave owner beat the shit out of the slave. What happened next will shock you videos. You love those.
Oh, the morality channels.
Hey, you should probably
that's content gold.
You should describe that in a different manner next time. I'm just gonna ask that favor from you, geek, because everybody has no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Dylan, you like those slavery
Context
videos,
matters.
Great job, Heem. Great job. I'm gonna throw it now over to Vadim.
Man's gonna get put on a no-fly list.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm it's Vadim. I've been MIA for a long fucking time because honestly I had like some health stuff, but don't worry, I'm actually doing like way better than I have in like over 10 years, so I'm pretty psyched about that. I saw some people on Twitter who were asking if I have slept since the last something that happened about 6 months ago, and yeah, I'm sleeping better than I have in 10 years. So thanks for asking. That's very kind of you to ask. So yeah, in terms of the slap thing, it was fucking hilarious in terms of like a when does this ever happen in real life kind of a way, but in just about every other way, it was super disturbing. He started out that let me see, like I have a little bit of what he wrote down. Started out his acceptance speech, and this is what really kind of changed my mind somewhat. I had a little bit of sympathy for him at first, but he started out by saying, "I'm overwhelmed by what God is calling me on to do," which was not followed up with smacking the ever living shit out of Chris Rock like he's some guy who's about to get shot in Sopranos. And honestly, he like that. It was just fucking nuts. He went on for minutes with this arrogant, pretentious, emotional barf about how he was this fierce defender of women. These are all the women I'm protecting my people. And he invoked God. He said that like God told him to do that. I mean, he was basically making himself to like Black Moses or something. It was really embarrassing. And I'm surprised that more people aren't contextualizing what happened with the slap with that speech, because to me, that really kind of seals the deal that it wasn't this instance of him kind of like romantically protecting his wife. It was more about ego. And yeah, I could get into that a little bit more, but I just want to say just real quick, like I have a background in comedy, and at the same time, like I've always found in my friends from the comedy world, I've always found sort of we can't make jokes anymore arguments, just totally insufferable. Things like the woke cancel culture mob is coming for our comedy. It's a cop out. It's bullshit. I do believe that people should be accountable for their jokes, and I love those discussions. But slapping Chris Rock That's not how you do it.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Rhizome.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rhizome. Everybody, RHYZOHM on Twitch. Apparently the successor to the hippy dippy throne, so watch out. Hopefully nothing happens to Dylan in Poland, otherwise I'm taking over. I love that clip is contingent on you getting harmed, and I hate that.
What's great is I was the only one that laughed because nobody else felt safe to laugh at that one. Everybody,
I know.
I heard Kevin. I heard Kevin just go.
Anyways, when it comes to the slap, hey man, there's social consequences for stuff. We wouldn't be talking half the shit that we do in the debate sphere if we thought some motherfucker was about to come up and slap us for what we're saying. I think that shit was just like the same kind of social consequences we want to see around shit. I have no problem with it. That's it. I think that our Twitter discourse, our fucking Reddit discourse, our Twitch poll discourse would be a lot better if you guys could come up and potentially slap me if I say some dumbass shit.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it now over to More Perfect Union.
Yeah, well, a couple things. And Chris Rock gets slapped like he was, the crackhead in New Jack City. It seems funny from a comedy perspective. Rhizome, you're right. People that are, insulated from like face-to-face contact. They seem to be okay with it. Like, you're not going to do something to hit somebody in real life, but you'd moderate yourself more if you had somebody right in front of your face. That may be true, but the fact of the matter is that Will Smith was in a place in front of at least several million viewers. He walks up on stage and he just wails the guy, and then he comes back and he cusses him twice. And his wife actually laughed at the joke initially. Okay. And so it's not really defending your spouse, your significant other. It's like there was no reason for him to get up on stage and do what he did. So, and as for comics, comics are basically trying to be canceled down anyway. Will Smith should have been arrested, because even though Chris Rock said he didn't want to press charges, they had prima facie evidence that he did it. They had the whole thing, right? It was on the main camera. The fact that it's not just kind of sort of lays out a two-tier justice system that exists for people who are rich and people who are not rich. And I think that it sets a bad take. And for Chris Rock, actually, I think he handed him his award, right? Because it was announcing the award that Will Smith actually got. So he did it. They're friends. They've been friends for a long time. It's an unfortunate thing. There's something else that was going on there for Will Smith that we're not really privy to, but it was bad behavior. It is the kind of behavior that should not be just laughed off. The fact that nothing's going to happen with it, I don't really care, but it does set a bad precedent and tone, right? So, okay. And nobody laughed at my Chris Rock crackhead from New Jack City joke, so fuck you all.
Nobody slapped you.
Kind of an old movie.
I thought that was pretty good. That's a good reference.
Okay, so everybody's
a good reference. It's just kind of old.
So everybody's gone. Even soft hand team. Okay, great. Okay, so who wants to start us off?
I'll start.
I insulted him, so I'll throw it to him first.
Okay. I think that it's just, first of all, it's really weird that it became such big talking point. I saw so many different kind of different analyses. I saw people saying that, if it was a black person and a white person, that it would have been somehow significantly different. I don't really think I wonder what everybody's takes is on that. I don't think it would have been I don't see why the race had to be an issue at all. And then also,
if it was male or female, I think it'd be a problem, right?
Yeah,
if
male or female.
Yeah. If it was a woman,
if
it was a woman getting slapped,
had popped the joke off, right? And he went up her and smacked the shit out of her.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. But I guess I just find that a little bit weird. And also, I want to say Vadim brought up a good point about his acceptance speech. That was really weird. At one point, the snot was coming out of his nose so hard that they had to cut away into finding any other footage that they could find, and it got like stuck on just like the Oscars like flashing on the screen. And like
Probably.
it was weird that he tried to say, "Oh, I'm trying to carry God forward now" and stuff, and then also that he was trying to say that it seemed like he was method acting almost, because I guess he played the role of Serena Williams, Venus Williams' dad. So I don't know if it was like some weird method acting. Maybe, I don't know.
The method of slapping.
No, well, I mean, he
like being overbearing
no
and
remorse
shit.
for it, because he was, seeing, lip syncing, getting jiggy with it at the after party, right? So he had moved on pretty fast.
Did you just unironically say getting jiggy with it, MPU?
I did. Hey man, I can do it.
And
why do you gotta be racist, man?
The point you addressed of mine in your intro, I understand what you're saying, where obviously there are lines to it, and it seems like if Chris Rock would have said something to her in a threatening manner or in an angry way, I could see maybe your point. But again, it was a joke at the Oscars, right? You're expected to get ribbed.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask. Do you guys think that like the expectation for the level of shots that you have to take is the same as like, let's say, a Comedy Central roast when you're at the Oscars?
I don't think that it matters,
It's not
because you're
that-
up on,
it's
you're
not
on the
that
stage.
high.
Yeah, so you're on the
Sorry?
stage on this like huge awards ceremony. So if you can't, like, we've had hosts in the past fire shots off at everybody about everything, right? Like,
For sure. I don't disagree that there's like, it's like in my opinion, it's like a lighter version of a roast. Like if the roast is like as hard as you can fucking go, at the Oscars it's like a step below that, I think.
Exactly.
No,
And it's-
no, but I'm going to disagree with that. You're in the audience. You're in the front row. If you are at a comedy show and you're in the front row, you can reasonably expect the comic to lay into you. Especially if there is some visual cue that can operate off of. The story is that Chris Rock didn't even know that she had alopecia.
And it's
Right?
alopecia. Who
So
gives
him
a shit? It's
making
not
the joke.
cancer. It's not
No,
cancer. It's fucking alopecia.
Listen, in her defense.
Also,
Wait, sorry. In her defense, I gotta say, I listened to her not complaining, but like talking about the difficulty of like when she went to the shower and like clumps of hair would fall. And like for a woman, surely you guys can understand. We're all fucking sitting here as men saying, "Oh, it's going bald is not a big deal." I'm fucking going bald, okay?
Dog, if I went to the bathroom and showered and clumps of hair fell out, I'd be freaked out
so
too.
she's talked about that, right? But she's also done interviews where she said, "I apologize." She's also come out and done interviews where she said she's kind of gotten used to the thing. I'm not going to say made friends with it, but she says she likes the look that she has now, and she thinks that she's beautiful, so everybody can suck one.
yeah, I mean, I think that's
that's
great.
a good
There's absolutely an impact of going bald, right? Like lots of,
Yeah,
I think,
really?
there was a streamer that I think was going to fight Dylan that I think was exposed as showing having like a bald spot. So I mean,
Oh, you
balding
weren't
is very much-
getting into drama. I guess fuck that. Fuck that, eh?
Listen, I'm testing the waters, I'm trying to get my feet wet. But no, I think it's still something that you look at a lot of comedians, and a lot of comedians have different conditions and things throughout like the last like 30, 40, 50 years, and they can be comfortable with either like jokes being made. We have situations similarly that when jokes are made and they're uncomfortable, they don't like it, they deal with it afterwards, right? Like most of us don't just awkwardly interrupt an awards show and march up on stage like we're some entitled.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and just like deck somebody or like it was like the weirdest like slap too. It wasn't even like a punch. Like and I think all of it, you have to take everything into account. You have to take into the acceptance speech, how weird the punch was, everything, and it all just kind of adds up like in a really weird way. Like I just think
100%, I agree.
like it's just an unusual
The slap
thing that
is
we
the
shouldn't have done.
ultimate disrespect. If it was a punch, that's too normal. The slap is like the ultimate, like, yo, fuck
Yeah.
you. I don't
Oh,
respect
slap is
you at all.
definitely.
Yeah.
Also-
If it was a
Wait,
punch,
you
like
guys
he
are
wouldn't
actually making a
have.
It's
difference
like beating
between
somebody
them.
with a
Who
shoe in the
cares?
East.
Oh,
No,
dude, there's a huge.
If he got
chose
punched,
the
it would
slap.
have been completely different. The slap is a lot more of like it's a lot more of the symbolic effect of it, as opposed to a punch where you're just like boom. Like, okay, nobody would have been defending him probably in the case of a straight up punch, right? I think there'd be a much clearer case for assault charges being levied in that case. But a slap is a lot more. It's kind of a symbol. It has meme value to it. Obviously, the audio effect of it was great. Like, I gotta be serious though. The thing is, MPU mentioned earlier about how Jada was laughing or something in the beginning. No, like if you watch the clip, she was not happy about what was being made, and moreover, her approach or her getting used to alopecia or whatever is actually kind of irrelevant to the discourse of the issue of basically body shaming at large, that sort of thing, as it applies to women in general. The last point that I wanted to make here quickly was just that a lot of stuff where violence is involved tends to be funny. I mean, look, does anybody remember when Alex Jones and his crew crashed the Young Turks back, I think, in 2016, 2017? That was funny as hell. And what's that?
I said Jimmy Dore spat on him.
Well, Jimmy Dore spat on Alex Jones. A lot of people laughed at that. I didn't really find that funny, but I found a lot of the confrontation, the scuffle between Alex and Jank to be funny. Like, I laughed my ass off. I thought it was funny. But people might just say, oh, that's violence. We can't laugh at violence, right? So
I want to say that I think
you finish
denims could be... sorry.
Sorry, there's people. MPU, Heem, Vadim, then denims in that order.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter whether she. I mean, I made that point. It's kind of like it's a tangential point. It doesn't really matter whether she liked it or didn't like it. The question is whether or not the joke, the telling of a verbal statement, okay, that's done in jest, justifies physical confrontation. And I know everybody on this panel probably at some point was talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, and we're talking about or Kim Potter case in Minnesota, where they're talking about use of force continuums, right? And what you have to do in order to get to a point, police, whatever, but you have to do a lot, right, to justify physical interaction.
Okay? Well, that was a lethal. That was a lethal altercation with a weapon.
Use of force, Kevin. Use of force is not lethal. It's just like escalate when you can escalate force.
Escalation.
The point is, I'm not trying to have a use of force. He was carrying a gun.
Kevin, stop. I'm not trying to have a use of force conversation. I'm just simply saying that in cases where the law is involved, okay, you have to cross a much higher threshold in order to justify the use of physical force. And I'm telling you, I don't believe, regardless of whatever the circumstances is for Will Smith, there was not that breach there for him. And the chivalry argument aside, which is sexist, right? It's sexist to say that he was just defending his woman. Okay. That's one of the arguments that people were making. It's just stupid. He shouldn't have done it. You could judge whether or not Chris Rock should have told the joke, and then that would be fine. You could lay that critique on him. But when Will Smith gets up and he actually strikes a guy, it's a problem. And for anybody to defend it as the guy's defending his woman, okay, that's sexist.
Okay, but not everybody here has made that argument. In fact, a lot of people had other arguments around the defense of it. So also comparing it to Rittenhouse, again, over the top, false equivalence. So.
Yeah, was I next?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, you say it's sexist to defend your woman, but I don't think it has to be sexist. It can be between, let's say, two gay guys are married, and one person stands up for the other one. Does that make it sexist? Like you're in a partnership with someone and you care about them. Like I don't think it's wrong to try to stand up for them. But I will agree with you that the slap is obviously way above board. You know, it doesn't. That's ridiculous. But and then Kevin, you said that. You say experience. You said that it's irrelevant what her experience was, but I was responding to someone saying that going bald is no big deal. I'm just saying that, like, for women, it's a bigger deal than for men, is because of how society views women's hair and femininity. And then also, I'm not surprised. Wait, sorry, one more thing. I'm not surprised that you think violence is funny because you want to nuke every country outside the United States. So
anyone going bald is going to be a bad
for
thing.
Low yield weapons against North Korea. So
Hey, man, anyone going bald?
Wait, sorry. Yeah. Kevin, I didn't get to hear what you said. Can you say that again?
Except I've only advocated for using low-yield tactical nukes against North Korea's hardened nuclear sites. So I've never advocated for nuking Russia, never advocating for nuking Germany, etc. So
not Germany?
No.
France?
Well, they did try to sell nukes to and chemical weapons to Saddam. So maybe we can have a conversation about France.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Just have a list of countries you want to work down.
He does. He definitely does.
No, I'm talking about him.
Oh. Well, I was talking about Kevin. We're gonna throw it over to Vadim.
Okay, so first of all, just one quick thing. The laughing, like who is laughing when, I mean, that did happen, but it really doesn't matter because people can exhibit all sorts of behavior under stress. Laughing is something that people do all the time in cases like that. And of course, he was probably trying to keep it cool, and then he just decided, like, fuck it. But man, I know that you acknowledged a little bit of the speech, but I was not exaggerating. Like the overwhelming majority of that speech was just him talking about how he was this protector specifically of women, and it went on and on. Like it was literally about 4 minutes of his speech. And I think that really says a lot about his view on it. And I want to say real quick that I think that there's a lot of people out there who I'm guessing, armchair psychoanalyst mode here, that some of them are justifiably angry that we live in an extremely ableist society and there's just no comeuppance for that shit in this world. I think that some people are giving more of a pass to it and praising it even because they're just savoring the Schadenfreude. Now, I will say that I don't really think it's ableism. Maybe we can talk about that after this. But, I really do think that, that I understand, in spite of not thinking that it was ableism, where people are coming from with that. I hear you. But I'm just surprised that more people are focusing on that, this sort of moment where Chris Rock did say something kind of crass and sensitive about her physical, her looks or something out of her control, when to me, what that really was, that whole thing more than anything, was an example of just the outrageously privileged, I can do whatever the fuck I want with no consequences type mentality that we all know and hate, that goes on in Hollywood and pretty much everywhere where there are people at the absolute height of success. So yeah, that's
you know what? One thing he said in the speech too, he said he was protecting the girls on the set, the two girls that played Venus and Serena. I'm like, what the fuck was he protecting them from? Like, they're on a professional movie set, bro. Relax.
All right, really quick, I have a response for Heem and for Vadim.
Yeah. Okay, wait.
First,
Heem.
Okay, MPU, I'm talking right now.
I'm talking.
Oh, sorry, Dylan's talking.
Yeah, I'm not MPU, okay? Okay. We're going to throw it over to Denims, then Rhizome. I want to make sure Denims can get in.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Thank you. Okay, first, I think you have to concede that it is sexist. And I know you gave a different example, Heem, but we live in a society, et cetera, et cetera. You can't deny that the notion of protecting your woman is very real, and it is sexist. It's just plain and simple. And I think it's too hard to defend the opposite. And I think
Heem, can you stop jumping in every 4 seconds?
Thank you for defending my honor. Not sexist at all.
It's just annoying the fuck out of me.
I'm just fucking with you. But yeah, I think it's easier to just concede it and move on to different points, because the reality is one of these things happens a lot more than the other, right? Men getting into physical altercations because someone insulted their woman. It just happens so much more frequently than gay men getting in arguments with physical altercations with other people. The other thing, though, I did want to agree with you was that I think just being well, balding is really not that big of a deal. It really wasn't that big of a deal. It's I don't know, man. It feels like insulting a dude for being short, women don't care if we're short. We don't really give a shit if we're short. But you can't pretend society doesn't treat maybe men, some parts of society don't treat men who are shorter differently, or like even if you're like, oh, I'm a short king and I'm proud or whatever, that doesn't impact the fact that like some people in society are still going to shit on you for this thing. So even if you're happy with your height, it doesn't matter really. And it's the same thing with like women being bald. Like you can be happy and you can be like, oh, you know, I love it, I love having like a smooth egg on the top of my head, but it doesn't change how other people are going to view you, and that's going to like impact you. You know, and also I think the joke wasn't really funny. It was just like it was so surface layer. It just wasn't fun. It was just like the joke is you're bald. It's like that's it. That's the best you can come up with, bro. Come on, Chris. Certainly you can come up with something better than that. There's got to be something more there. Okay, those are my thoughts.
Okay, Rhizome.
Yeah. I mean, Denims, you said what I wanted to say on partially what I wanted to say on like the men-women thing. I think it's just bullshit that people are like, yo, it doesn't matter for a man to go bald. That's just fucking dumbass shit. And if I was taking a shower and clumps of my hair were falling out, that'd be a pretty traumatizing experience, okay? And I don't think that I'd be like ready to face society the next day. Like, whatever, I have a penis. I can be bald. And then number two, Vadim, ableism, being bald is not a disability.
Yeah. Oh no. I agree with that. I was saying like we could talk about that afterwards. I do not think it's a disability, but I think people are sort of interpreting it as such. I've heard a lot of people use that term. That's why I said it. Anyway, go on.
That was it.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
maybe we need to chuck in the word able noir. I heard able noir mentioned.
Well, I wanted to say there's been some discussion that Will Smith laughed at the joke at the start of it. My view of what happened there was that they're at, you know, the Oscars. It's like it's an entertaining sort of thing. Everybody's like kind of happy and stuff. And he didn't really realize exactly what was happening. And there was a bit of a delayed reaction. That's my interpretation. And so when people say, oh, well, he's laughing at the start, it's like, well, except the problem with that is that we saw his reaction like 5 seconds later, basically. He was clearly not happy once he realized the gravity of what just occurred. So I feel like it's kind of goofy to just say, oh, well, you laughed. It's like, okay, but he wasn't laughing at the joke. She wasn't laughing at the joke. She was pissed. So, you know.
Okay.
Well,
Sure. Yeah, you can go on.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody's like debating whether or not it was a good joke. It was obviously just like not a great joke, and you could even say maybe a little bit in poor taste. But it just seems very important to mention that they're at a fucking award show. They're at the Oscars. There's place and situations that like maybe you could talk about defending your woman when she gets fucking made fun of a little bit or whatever. I just don't think it's when millions of people are watching your Will Smith attacking Chris Rock. And I don't know. It seems like he obviously overreacted, and if you're just leaning back on chivalry, it's fucking stupid.
I guess, I feel like everyone's arguments was against my argument of like it doesn't have to come from a sexist. I'm just saying that like I agree that it appears sexist, and it oftentimes is a man trying to like be the dominant in the relationship. I'm just saying that it doesn't necessarily have to come from that place. You know, like a lot of relationships, people, I don't know, if you're a fucking progressive couple, I don't know. I look at my partner as equal to me. You know, I don't think it's, to me, that's how I view it, I guess.
But
I think chivalry. I think chivalry is stupid. I just want to be clear. I'm not defending it from that position, and I've said I want to be very clear about this. If she got up there and she bapped him, I think it would have been even funnier. So,
I think it should have been Jaden Smith personally.
I think,
but the problem is, like
if she'd have gotten up there, she could have said she's the one who was offended. I don't know that I would agree with her doing that, right? But she would be more in the right to do it. The one other thing I just wanted to throw is everybody's, people are talking about it being an award show. It sure was. You know what people do at award shows? They eat and they drink. And maybe the delayed reaction that he had, where he's like, and then he got pissed off and got up. Maybe he was a little inebriated when he did that shit.
And let us not forget that Jada Pinkett Smith, she was the one who looked anything though. Well, she looked at Will Smith, and it was almost like Will Smith took the cue of like, you better fucking do something about that. So I don't understand the sexist aspect of this, because it felt like it was a Jada Pinkett Smith kind of like pushing him towards something.
Okay,
At
maybe
least
it's
that's how
more
it looks.
misandry than misogyny.
Well, that's kind of a meme, but okay.
Okay. This topic seems to be kind of calming down, if I'm being completely honest. Would everybody okay wrapping this one up early so we can get to the Clarence Thomas question? Because that I'm
Sure.
very interested in that.
Sure.
Okay. Do you guys want outros for this?
Yeah, sure.
You do? Okay.
Sure.
Got it. I'm gonna throw it first to Vadim.
Okay, guys. You can't fucking hit people for no reason. Just get a grip. Seriously, like, serious.
Did
It's just no, it's not. I mean, like, what if Rock had fought back? As someone who actually like loves movies, just out there, how many of you actually know what won Best Documentary Feature? Summer of Soul was a fucking great movie, and he the moment became about the fucking slap, and yeah, it was hilarious, but yeah, the movie, what people are there for actually does matter more. Call me, I don't know, old fashioned, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have much else to say other than there was, yeah, this is the last thing I want to say. There was an argument, or not an argument, a conversation to be had. And that conversation really is only being had among people who agree with it now. Everyone who should have thought, like, who it would benefit to have a conversation with, have a conversation about comedy and kind of going like beyond the line, they're just not going to be receptive to it now. So it's just like, if anyone is glad that it occurred because you're pissed off that comedians like go too far or whatever, yeah, it just kind of, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So I have to get some water right now. I'm a little parched. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. I'm gonna throw it over to him.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely shouldn't have slapped him. I think violence is never the answer. It would have been okay if if they came out and made a statement afterwards or something like that. I'm surprised we didn't get to wondering whether or not you guys think it would have been appropriate for them not to give him the Oscar. Like,
that
what kind of
Yeah, they just
I
removed
wonder,
him
like,
from the Academy. So right before we
Really?
came on, they removed him. Yeah, or he
What does that
resigned.
even
He
mean?
either
He resigned. That was like
he
a
can't. I
performative
don't
thing.
think
He's resigned.
he can't receive future awards, is my understanding.
Oh shit. Okay. So yeah, I mean that's an interesting angle that like they gave him an award, the most prestigious award, like 5 minutes after he did that. But yeah, I mean Chris Rock is way funnier than that joke. If you guys have never seen Chris Rock's stand-up specials, he's way funnier than what he showed in that joke. So that's the only issue I had with the joke itself.
Half baked.
Yeah, just don't hit people, especially if they don't hit you first, don't hit people. But PSA, like as we're getting back out into the world post-COVID, remember, people will smack you in the fucking mouth for almost no reason.
Kevin Castley.
Yeah. So Chris Rock's joke, not that funny. Will Smith bopping Chris Rock was pretty funny. So and yeah, you don't have to come at this from a sexist position to see that what he did, why in the moment you could see that it was to some extent justified. So thank you.
All right, now I'm going to pass it over to MPU.
Yeah, so Chris Rock, he didn't deserve to get hit, even if the joke was bad. I mean, it's not a crime, and it's not a justification for assault and battery because a comedian tells an unfunny joke, which at its worst was an unfunny joke. I don't believe anybody believes that he did it to attack Jada Pinkett Smith. That's not his style of comedy to begin with. And Will Smith was in the wrong. And if Hollywood is going to be consistent, logically consistent, and operationally consistent, they will will retroactively pull the Oscar from him because Harvey Weinstein, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Okay, next we're gonna throw it over to Rhizome.
Yeah, obviously unjustified violence is bad. We shouldn't hit each other, but I think we're blowing this out of proportion. This shit is just some social consequence of saying some bad joke. I don't see it any other way.
Okay, and I'm gonna throw it over to Denims.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the fact that people were trying to say that he shouldn't be allowed to keep the Oscar is silly, considering there are a lot of other people that are definitely worse that have kept all their Oscars. As a side note, that would have been worthwhile to talk about him, but it slipped my mind as well. And I'm gonna do what any good streamer does, which is steal chat's ideas. I think actually it would have been very very tactful and classy if he had went up to accept the award, and instead of going for the slap, he had said, like, by the way, Chris, that joke wasn't cool. Like, my wife is going through a lot and you do not know like what it's like for her. So like, that's not cool, man. I think that would have been really tactful, actually. It would have been pretty good. Yeah, so I don't know. I also still think it was really funny, and Dylan, I'm sure you can agree, content is content.
Content is content. I go to the ends of the earth for it. And then we're going to throw it to our last man standing.
Thank you. I think maybe some panelists had a good point originally. It seems like we all kind of veered away a little from that, but I feel like maybe there's something in this. Maybe being able noir is out of control, and maybe we shouldn't talk about this because we're white, and maybe we should police everyone's thoughts and like how people interact on social media and things like that. And maybe comedians should be checked. And actually, no, I'm being as like sarcastic as possible because I think all of that is a terrible idea. I think we shouldn't just like hit comedians at award shows, and I think comedians should try to be funny. When they're not funny, we make fun of them for it.
Okay, now we're going to go to the next topic, which has to do with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. So there have been some revelations about the man's wife, who exchanged texts with Mark Meadows, who was the White House chief of staff during the Trump administration, in which she espoused, like conspiracy theories and strategized on how to overturn the 2020 election, basically like, undo the results. And so there have been calls from certain progressives like AOC and others for Clarence Thomas to resign. There's some other issues to it, but I don't want to get over everything. So the topic is very basic. Should Clarence Thomas resign, be punished, or what should this result in, if anything at all? And I'm going to start with Rhizome.
Yeah, I think as long as there's the question and it hasn't been investigated, I think then we should have Clarence Thomas recuse himself from any cases that have to do with election or Trump. I think it's pretty straightforward. When it comes to the impeachment or like trying to get him to resign, I don't see any reason right now, but at the same time, I haven't looked really deep into the evidence. So I just think it would be tactful. Yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting case where we've got Clarence Thomas' wife, Jeannie Thomas, I believe is it's pronounced. So she's had obviously conversations, texts between Meadows and basically like advocating for what would essentially boil down to an overthrow of the American democracy. I think, when people in my community, myself, et cetera, use terms like fifth column or whatnot, I mean, it doesn't really get much bigger than that. You're talking about somebody literally trying to overturn the democratic process and keep Trump basically in as a dictator, basically. The question that arises here is, to what extent does this impact on Clarence Thomas' judgment as it relates to his role as a judge on the Supreme Court of the United States? And so there's a couple points to note here. The first is that, well, yes, they're married, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's guilty. But I want to be clear about something. The people that you'll see, generally speaking, writing articles about this, arguing, well, it's sexist to assume that he's involved or whatever, because historically speaking, that was used as women were just a function of their husbands. So how can we go after him because of what she did? Are you like a 1950s misogynist? The problem with that is that that's kind of an almost sort of like concern troll approach, where they're not actually concerned about sexism. These are Trump supporters who, generally speaking, are pretty misogynist, and they're trying to support the overthrow of the democratic process and the liberal open society in the United States. And so they're trying to gaslight you by bringing up these arguments that actually sound feminist or whatever, but they're really not. And if you look at, NPR reports here, that Clarence Thomas was the one justice that disagreed at the Supreme Court when it was looked into if the White House had to release the documents of the interactions of these communications. He was the one that opposed it. And so it raises a question of suspicion of, to what knowledge did he have? And also to what degree might he also himself be involved in nefarious activities? And so given this, I think just on the sole basis of the reputation and the seriousness of the Supreme Court as the final buck of justice in the United States, he should recuse himself. But I'm not saying 100% that he's guilty or that he knew anything about this. I'm just saying that circumstances wise, to protect the reputation of the court, he should recuse himself. Thank you.
Okay, now over to MPU.
Okay. There's a couple, three things at play. First of all, you can't hold a justice accountable for the actions of a family member, right? The Constitution is pretty clear. They have lifetime tenure pending their own good behavior. But you have to find out if he's got something that is bad behavior that would be a disqualifying event. For that, you have to impeach and you have to get 2/3 votes, okay, in the Senate. If his wife was involved with, before January 6th, trying to figure out how to not overturn the election, I think that the term overturn the election and challenge the result, I think are they're intermixed. And some people, and depending on your political affiliation, one means a great deal more than the other. And people, depending on your political affiliation, you will try to use the one that you think makes it sound the best for your side. So in the case of leftists, it's about bringing it up and saying, oh my God, it's insurrection all the time, 24/7. Ginny Thomas, I haven't seen the texts, right? I don't know if they've released them or whatever. I haven't seen the text, but the general construct of it was that they were trying to figure out what they could do to oppose the count in the House, which is a constitutionally protected procedure or constitutionally provided procedure. Now, to the extent, now that there is the interesting case where he's got voted not to release the information to the January 6th committee, that potentially, if that looks like it involved his wife, it does bring up the question of whether or not he should recuse himself in future matters. And I think if that's the case, if he did it because of that, I think he should. But the Supreme Court actually says that justices, it's up to their own volition whether or not they're going to recuse or not. So.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Vadim.
Okay, so due to the fact that I didn't have much time to research this, and also, honestly, I've been feeling oddly lightheaded for the past half hour. I'm cool, but that's a thing. If I seem like, I don't know, I took like a gravity bong hit of resin, that's why. So I will say two quick things. One, which I just think it's interesting. I don't think it really furthers the conversation that much, but I found out earlier today that Ginny Thomas was actually part of this cult in the 80s called LifeSpring. I've actually seen a documentary on it, and so I think that I saw her in that documentary. And for a while, she was actually doing kind of outreach with cult survivors and stuff like that. And then she gravitated towards becoming part of another cult, the like MAGA QAnon bullshit. And that's really it's very fascinating to me. But just more on topic, when it comes to, I guess the only thing that I have to say right now is in terms of the recusing, if I understand it correctly, because again, just don't know everything about this stuff. It seems to me that might be a really good idea to have on the record down the line, because I think it speaks to just how batshit the right is at this time in history. And, and I guess the Supreme Court as well. So with that being said, I'm done.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to him.
Okay, he's not even sitting in his chair, but I'm gonna have to agree with MPU a little bit here. He said he hasn't seen the text. The texts were pretty crazy between Meadows and Janine. One was like, "This is a fight of good versus evil. Evil always looks like the victor until the King of Kings triumphs." Shit like that. That like when I hear people talking like that, that's scary shit, man. But anyways, it's a tough one because I've been wondering about this a lot actually, of like what can family members of politicians reasonably do. There's the fact that she was like a crazy lunatic is one thing. Like she was sharing videos apparently from Sandy Hook deniers, and like that tier of conspiracy, and like. But then you can talk about how Hunter Biden worked for Burisma and made a connection to have his dad meet with the people over there, and people in Congress make tons of money because their spouses own stocks. It's like it's very hard to police what the family members of politicians can like reasonably get away with. So I don't really know. And then the idea that like the Supreme Court judges are supposed to be impartial, like I don't know, to me it's hilarious. Like obviously if this guy is the biggest conservative justice, it's not a surprise. And then some people say that there's no way he didn't know what his wife was doing, but this is also Clarence Thomas, the same guy who once went over a decade without asking questions during oral arguments. In any of the cases. So maybe he just takes whatever his wife says and doesn't ask questions.
Gonna throw it over to Half Baked Takes.
Yeah, so I haven't heard anybody say the two words, but like if nobody should be bringing up resignation or impeachment, it seems I don't know what evidence you could possibly have against Clarence Thomas, unless something gets presented in the future. As of right now, I think that's just wholeheartedly an overreach. For recusal, from my understanding, you'd like to see him recuse himself from any case that involves that, like her texts are used as evidence or are used as part of the investigation. So you'd like to see recusal there, but just to say recusal upon any case that involves like vote or like voter integrity or the election and then Trump seems a little, that there's just no way you could justify that.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Denims.
I think the most suspicious thing about the case, because I think it's possible to be impartial regardless of those around you. I think this is like the major defense that people at the very least use about like the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden stuff, where like conservatives or like the really wacky ones will be like Joe Biden shouldn't be in office because of Hunter Biden, and obviously they're different people. But like I was reading like about this prior, and there were like after the 2020 election, there were multiple justices who participated in some cases involving the election results, and I'll just read it out. One of these was the court's decision in January requiring that Trump's White House records be turned over to the House committee investigating the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Only one justice disagreed, Clarence Thomas. If he's the only justice disagreeing with whether or not documents should be turned over, I think this is a lot more suspicious and maybe requires us to care a little bit more. That's it.
Okay, and now I'm gonna throw it again to the last man standing.
Thank you. I noticed that you're saving the best for last every time. I think it's really important to point out that there are a lot of dumbasses in the U.S. and it's not illegal to be a dumbass. It's not illegal to be married to a dumbass. So I think it's just really important to remember that, and that people can get sucked into bad ideas, bad movements, just because this Ginny Thomas might be a dumbass who texted a bunch of crazy shit to Mark Meadows. Doesn't really amount to everything, like anything much. I don't know that it even really merits him recusing himself. If there is a link between Ginny Thomas and the January 6th events, basically everything about that the January 6th specific committee is about, then maybe he should be recusing himself, which is an important thing that I think we need to establish, that there is an inexorable link between Ginny Thomas and the events that took place. If we don't have that, I don't think that he needs to recuse himself, and I don't know that a singular case of him voting on not releasing documents. It depends. I think you can make a case that on him voting against releasing documents is a legitimate cause for concern if it goes against his voting history. If there's no past instances where he votes against releasing documents, then this shows like it's something that's aberrant, right? It's aberrant behavior. I think it's really important to point out that in the U.S., it's you have like the division of powers, so like Supreme Courts are kind of a big deal, and you shouldn't have something that seems like as socially motivated as the January 6th committee and like a pressing like social issue decide on when a Supreme Court should be impeached or things like that. And I think the legal standard and conditions for the Thomas need to be like very explicit, both for recusal and for him being impeached or resigning.
Okay. Kevin wants to start us off on this topic.
I'm done.
Okay. Good luck, Kevin. And Rhizome DMs.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Okay, so a few points here with respect to the Hunter Biden arguments. I think it's funny how, a lot of conservatives, Goobercons and stuff, will make the point of, oh, well, Biden, you can't trust Biden because of his son and everything. Look, I'm not a Biden fan. I've got some pretty harsh words for Biden, videos on Biden. But you got to be real. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, but then you're going to say about Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas, oh, no. They're just married, but you can't take anything into account there. I mean, that's kind of a double standard. I also wanted to note here that I want to reiterate my opening. I'm not saying that he 100% is involved or had any knowledge about this, or that in any way that necessarily precludes him from being a fair justice in this case. What I'm saying is, because of the importance and the sacredness of the Supreme Court as the final buck of the justice system in the United States, to avoid any appearance of impropriety, it would be appropriate for him to recuse himself from all cases involving January 6th. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, oh, well, he has a right to be the Supreme Court justice. It's a lifetime appointment, whatever. I get that. All that I'm making, the only thing that I'm pointing out here is that institutions without norms and without, the sort of attention to detail and appearance of how the public might perceive things, that they're just that those institutions become empty shells without norms that nobody trusts. And for the Supreme Court to become an empty shell that nobody takes seriously would be hugely destructive to the liberal and open society in the United States. If everybody just assumes, oh, it's corrupt, it's just, oh, well, he has a right to be there, but he can be as corrupt or whatever as he wants. No, I think appearances of impropriety, for the optics sake, for public trust, for the reputation of the court, for the eons to come, you have to recuse yourself there. And I would say the same if they're a Democrat as well, because the court is more important than, oh, well, he has a right to do the job. It's like, dude, come on, it's the highest court. Yeah, recuse from any case involving January 6th. So, yeah.
I don't know, like, why we need like a clear condition, right? Like, I think that.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
no,
you
it's about the appearance of impropriety, not proving guilt. I'm not saying he's guilty.
That's not really like how like highest court recusal is generally decided on, like just the appearance of propriety, right? Like there are generally like universal conditions.
That's kind of a problem, though, and the U.S. does tend to have that problem. Parliamentary systems, by the way, like in Canada, as you would know, parliamentary systems understand that institutions without norms are flawed and become empty shells. Because in Canada, a lot of the norms and acceptable behavior as a politician are not written down. They're just things that you kind of have to
Right.
follow
So you're
because they're
actually
the
making
reasonable
my
thing to do.
argument. You're making my argument for me because I'm saying that you need like clear conditions, right? Like you're saying without norms, and by saying no, literally what I'm saying.
No. But I'm not saying it's a codified thing. I'm saying that in cases where it's sus, regardless of what party, regardless of who it is, you should recuse yourself, and that's a better precedent to set than, oh, I have a right to be here. Yeah, nobody's disagreeing. What we're saying is that the reputation of the court for the centuries.
Kevin, we don't hold SCOTUS to that. We don't hold SCOTUS to that.
Yeah, that's a problem, and that's a problem, and that's why the U.S. is becoming more illiberal. Though
they handle issues that are far too broad. They handle issues that are far too broad and wide-reaching for them to recuse themselves every time that it might appear that they have a fucking
overturning 111 communications is not far too broad or too vague or abstract. It's a serious
you're
thing
talking about creating norms.
You're talking about creating norms, Kevin, as it relates to an insurrection against your republic. So that's kind of a big deal, and it's kind of a specific issue. They don't just deal in philosophy and abstracts. They also deal in technicalities.
Okay, I want to throw it to I want to throw it to MPU because MPU's been waiting. Okay. I see.
You guys keep throwing around the word insurrection as though there was some codified, coordinated effort between the administration and the people who were in the Capitol building. Okay.
Well, there was.
That's
MPU, can we not, dude? Can we not?
Finish.
You're right. It was just a freedom parade.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's just a meme.
I'm trying to be a nice guy and let you guys all get your words in and stuff like that. But 3 or 4 people speaking when I'm speaking is just not going to fucking work. Okay. So let me just finish, and then you guys can do whatever you want. The point is that even the FBI has said there was no causal linkage for insurrection. The House is trying to do their, pretty stacked committee to try to figure out what they want. And they want to do that because they want to come back to Donald Trump and they want to say, okay, Article 14, you participated in a quote unquote insurrection, and therefore you're ineligible to run for office in 2024. This is all,
it's a bipartisan
I think
thing.
Is a large part of what is driving the Democratic Party for this.
It's a bipartisan thing, though. Cheney is called out Trump for this bullshit.
Kevin, if there is a causal connection between the information that was the records that Ginny Thomas, her participation in trying to figure out how to forestall or alter the outcome of the election using a constitutionally supplied process, puts her at odds with a case that her husband has to decide. I'm sure he will announce that he will recuse himself from that because that's his option. He is, despite what everybody wants to say about him, he is a man of principle. Okay, so I think he will. If it's necessary, he'll stop and he'll back away from it. Here's the issue. Even if he didn't, it is a 6-3 majority. And it's not likely going to come down to Justice Thomas being the deciding vote. Okay?
Well,
so
nobody made that argument.
The point that you guys are trying to argue is irrelevant. Okay, in the concrete, in the abstract sense, yeah. If there's some reason to recuse, Justice Thomas is a pretty straightforward guy. People say he's conservative. He's an original intent guy. Okay, and he believes that the words of the Constitution matter.
This is my
he's going to hold himself to a high standard. He always has.
And he's an incredibly principled guy.
Wait. Okay, there's multiple of you are talking at the same time. I'm going to have half-baked takes say something really quick, and then we're going to throw it to Kevin. Okay?
I was just going to say, like, Clarence Thomas, you could make an argument that he is the most principled or in his judicial theory. The way he writes and the way he rules on cases has been consistent throughout his entire time on the bench. So I just don't know if his wife kind of having interest in, I don't know. It just seems dumb. Sorry, Kevin.
Well, no, it's okay. I want to be clear. You can be conservative. You could be a Democrat. You could be a liberal, progressive, whatever. It actually doesn't matter. What matters here is just the appearance of impropriety. If there was a Democratic, liberal sort of coup or whatever, attempt of insurrection, and there was one guy going against it, or whatever on the Supreme Court that happened to be a Democrat or whatever, I'd say, okay, you should probably recuse yourself from any cases involving the investigation of that committee. Look, the thing is, you can try to paint this as, oh, well, it's just the Democrats trying to find an excuse to not let Trump run. That's not true. It is a bipartisan thing, and many leading Republican figures have denounced and disavowed Trump's behavior and recognized that what he did was attempt to overthrow and end the Democratic Republic in the United States. So this idea, like, it's not personal against Clarence Thomas. All that we're saying is to avoid any sort of appearance of impropriety, to protect the reputation of the court, you should recuse yourself in cases involving this. It's not to say that he's guilty of anything.
If I could have 30 seconds to respond to that.
Sure. Then we're gonna throw it over to our Canadian fellow who is not getting my signals.
Sorry,
thank you.
Yeah, I had your hand hidden. My bad.
Okay, so Kevin, just if there's a reason for him to recuse himself, it'll become evident, right? Somebody else was throwing something in there that there was going to be, he was under Justice Thomas was under investigation for something else. We'll bring that information forward when you get a chance. But just for reference, okay, Wisconsin is putting something before the state Senate to decertify. It has no legal bound against the Constitution, right? Because it's already done. But they want to take back their 10 electoral votes because they found in the state massive fraud. Okay, through an investigation that's taken 18 months. So, you know, you could say that everybody could say that this, you know, people are trying to overturn the results of an election. There was a lot of shady shit that went on, a lot of stuff that violated the Constitution, right? That doesn't, because you challenge that, doesn't make it an attempt to overthrow the government.
Well, you're saying if something comes up, he's already ruled on cases. He's already been involved in cases involving January 6th, and he did not recuse himself. And he did not recuse himself in cases that have already come up, which I noted, Denham's noted, NPR's talked about. Like, you're acting like it as if it's a hypothetical. No, I think
But
you have to.
But there is a reason to. There is a reason to.
This evidence just came out.
It's more important than your fucking. Oh, it's my right.
Okay, wait, stop.
Slow. Resign.
Slow down. Okay, who was the first person talking? I think it was MPU, wasn't it? Or was it Kevin?
But Kevin.
Well, I was responding to MPU,
okay,
and then
Kevin, continue.
Okay, thanks. So all that I was making the point of was just that MPU was talking about this as if, well, if something comes up, Clarence Thomas is a principal justice, and he'll know to recuse himself if it's in any sort of conflict of interest or whatever. The problem that I have with that is that, well, if he was going to do that, he would have recused himself from the case which he voted against on handing over those communications to the committee investigating it. So you can understand why there's an appearance of suspicious behavior. I'm not saying that he's guilty of obstructing justice and that's why he should resign. I'm saying that it looks like he might, given his relationship to his wife that we know about with all this, that it might appear to the public as if somebody who's sitting on the court is trying to obstruct justice. So in order to protect the reputation of the court, because there's nobody that you can appeal to past the Supreme Court. That's why it's so important that the Supreme Court try to be as pure as possible. He should recuse himself. And the cope that I'm getting from people is that, well, he has a right to be there. I'm not arguing that he doesn't. It's a lifetime appointment. I'm arguing that for the sake of norms, to not have these institutions become empty shells, that he recuse himself.
Kevin, you just said the man should have recused himself from the case that he already ruled on. He didn't.
Well, if we are to believe, making the point that he's not going to in the future if he didn't do it then, right?
He didn't know there was he didn't know about these fucking text messages back then.
He might have. But see, here's the problem. He might have.
What do you mean he might?
See, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing.
So, justices have to recuse themselves all the fucking time.
Wait.
This stuff was going to come out.
Wait, give me a second. Have big takes. Can you turn down your gain just a little bit? Like, I would appreciate that.
My bad. I don't want to be Haas. I'm sorry. I got heated.
No worries.
This is an era of leaks. He should have known that this was going to come to light and recused himself to protect his reputation as an impartial or consistent Supreme Court justice. I'm not like oh, you can't have any conservatives on the court or whatever. I don't care. I'm talking about there's a conflict of interest here. He knows that. Come on, he knows that, right? So,
at least before he didn't know.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Is he might have. He may very well. For your argument to make sense, he probably never talks to his wife. Doesn't know what his wife does.
Kevin, you're making there's a false premise that you're working with here, and you're saying that he has to disprove a negative, right? The Supreme Court sets its own rules for recusal, and it's up to the justice. That's it.
Well, but those rules are an empty shell. You need to have more
malfeasance. Unless you can show malfeasance,
norms.
Then there's nothing you can do about it except impeach the guy afterward.
Well, I'm not saying that this is a legal thing. I'm saying to avoid the appearance of impropriety. This is an optics argument because for a court to be taken seriously, yes, they can do laws, but if nobody trusts it, then you run into an issue where your social fabric falls apart. So for the sake of preserving the integrity of the court, just because you can technically still be there doesn't necessarily mean you should for those specific cases, is my point. And this is such a cope to say, oh, well, he can technically do it. It's like, yeah, well, if you want to be like Venezuela or Russia, Vladimir Putin is technically elected. Does anybody buy that? I mean, come on.
Okay, so I want to go to the people on the list. The first one is Maple Boy. Then Heem, then Vadim.
Thank you, War Tourist. So I actually had a quick glance into it because I was pretty sure, like based off my cursory stuff, I had like very little notice, just like everybody else, that you kind of missing the mark. I forget, your name is other suit guy. So I had a glance at it. There's the code of conduct, right, for American judges. There's the code of conduct, and under like Canon 2A, it specifies that you have to like respect and follow the law, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be able to through like a reasonable inquiry conclude that the judge's honesty, integrity, impartiality, temperament, or fitness to serve as a judge is impaired. So if all we need to do, as you say, is arbitrarily establish that there's a public conception that the judge is compromised in some form or another, then all we need are different left and right leaning media outlets to establish that this judge is compromised, and we can call on any judge to recuse itself. So this is
any judge should recuse themselves where there's the suspicion or the appearance of impropriety.
You're missing the point, right?
Okay, like you're just going back to laws. I'm not making a codified argument. I'm not making an argument based on what the code says. I'm making an argument based on norms and the appearance.
You understand that they use the disqualification statute and the judicial misconduct statute specifically for cases where the judge has like failed to recuse himself, where there are cases where like they have to actually take action, like where Congress or somebody has to take action.
But I'm making a proactive
argument. The judge is not recusing himself. Like it doesn't really matter.
It shouldn't have to go to a trial, right?
Because if you look at every candidate so far in the last like 10 years, like Kavanaugh, the current Democratic candidate,
like you're literally just ignoring my argument. You're not even engaging in my argument because my argument is not based in what the text is.
A point. Let him make.
But his point is disingenuous. So
let him actually make a point. Then you can challenge it.
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to try to restate it for you so that you can try to stop like talking past me and maybe actually address it. If all we have to do is have a large enough media outlet convince a significant enough population to believe that a Supreme Court judge is compromised in his impartiality, temperament, et cetera, ability to perform his duties as a judge, this is a horrible precedent. This is a terrible way to have the highest court. Yes.
That's not my argument. My argument is that if you're going to be a Supreme Court justice, to get to that point, you should know when something might look like a conflict of interest. It shouldn't take the media making a big stink of it for your feet to get held to the fire. You should know that this is wrong or that this might look improper, and so you recuse yourself, and that should be the norm. By the way, it shouldn't be like, oh, he recused himself, he must be guilty. It should be Yeah, that's what everybody does if there's any sort of case that might be a little bit
Yeah, the
sussy or
problem with
whatever.
everything you're saying is that in
So,
Canon
so
2A, they list a bunch of things, a bunch of really important words,
right,
right?
but I'm not
So they
making a
say
textual argument. But
reasonable
I'm not
minds
making
with
a
knowledge of
textual
all the
argument.
relevant
Like your
circumstances
point in
disclosed by the reasonable
referencing.
Okay, I can't even hear you both. Okay, so I want Maple to say his position for 20 seconds. Like Kevin, you're gonna respond for 20 seconds. Then we have to move on because the other people on the panel want to talk.
Okay, I think all you're saying is that you have to use media, like whether you like it or not. All you're saying is that people have to the broad general consensus, because that's literally all you're saying, is that a judge entering into the position should be able to appraise the current events, or sorry, not current events, the events that are unfolding that result in it looking like he might be compromised as a perception, and that's the point that I've been trying to counter.
Okay, Kevin.
Okay, so I'm not making a point that, oh, well, if the media thinks that you're wrong, you should recuse yourself. I'm making the point that if you're going to be in that position, you shouldn't just be like, oh, well, am I going to get caught and have to go to a trial? Well, technically the code said this. No, from a moral basis, you should just recuse yourself. And every single justice, regardless of partisan affiliation or bias, should do this as the norm to protect the integrity of the court and the law.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the list and see who's next. Next is Heem, Vadim, and then Denims. Denims, raise your hand. In Rhizome. There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess Kevin, you brought up the Hunter Biden thing that I mentioned. I wasn't saying that like one is okay and one is not. I'm just saying that in both cases it's a little bit gray, but it's very hard to exactly like figure out where to draw the line in terms of like what can family members of politicians engage in politically, or let's say in the case of the Congress, like when it comes to buying stocks and stuff. I think it's very difficult to like say what people's family members can engage in. I think it's like I agree that it's like less than ideal, right? I'm just don't know how in effect how you can like exercise a lot of oversight on that kind of thing. But I agree with you in general that like I think when it comes to like the Supreme Court, there's like only a handful of them, right? And I don't think it's a lot to say that like we expect these people to be like the exceptional members of society, who have no appearance of any sort of lack of ethics or ethical inconsistencies, or like in this case, even if it's just a one-off case that like Kevin said, they just say, hey, listen, there might be an issue here, so I'm gonna step back from this. But yeah, in general, the bigger picture for me is like what family members can and can't engage in, I guess.
Yeah, I guess my point was just about the appearance. But as far as the Hunter Biden stuff or other sorts of issues go, that's a little bit different than the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court would be the one deciding on those things. But if the Supreme Court itself is compromised, then you have a serious problem, because then if that falls and that's not effective and that's compromised, then at that point you have to restart your country, basically, is the problem. And so the Supreme Court, all justices on the Supreme Court should set up a norm. Like this should just be a thing that happens, like a parliamentary democracy sort of thing, where it's just what people do. It doesn't necessarily have to be written that you should do this, or you should cost benefit analysis. Will I get caught? This sort of thing. You should have the character that if you're going to be there, that you'll just know, I'll just recuse myself here. And that shouldn't be a shame thing. Nobody should shame Clarence Thomas for recusing himself. It shouldn't just be like, oh, he's guilty or whatever, because you want to set the norm where justices always recuse themselves if there's any potential of an appearance of impropriety. It shouldn't be like, oh, we all like gang up on him and say, oh, look, he must be guilty of something. That should just be a regular occurrence, honestly. That's how you have a better open society. So.
Okay, I'm going to now throw it over to Vadim.
Okay, so again, I don't know a whole lot about this topic yet. I want to say a little bit more than Justice Thomas has said over the course of his entire career on the Supreme Court. But I wanted to ask Kevin a question. Kevin, that's your name, right? Am I?
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay,
Superpower Broadcasting. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I just I've been reading about this as we've been talking, and you were talking about like appearances on the the SCOTUS, and at first I kind of thought this is maybe more just your opinion on things, but I'm reading this interview with a law professor who's a judicial ethicist. And at the end of this section, he says something to the effect of Grillers stress that it's an appearance test, adding it doesn't require an actual conflict. The reason we use an appearance test is because we say the appearance of justice is as important as the fact of justice itself. So am I right in saying that this is like kind of not just your opinion? This is sort of, I don't know, like judicial philosophy or like a tradition with it? Can you just expand on that? Because yeah.
So I'm not like I should note here, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a justice on any sort of court or anything. So yes, this is my opinion, but it's also an opinion that has been echoed by people that do have law degrees and do actually work in the judiciary. And it's also a very common thing in parliamentary democracies, like in the Commonwealth of Nations, for example, which I live in Canada, where something doesn't have to literally be written down in law for you to know that you shouldn't do as an official in the public or somebody on a judiciary. And so these are sorts of norms where the US is really big on, well, it all has to be written down. And if it's not written down, then I'm all in the clear and everything. No, an appearance of impropriety, an appearance of an obstruction of justice actually is a big deal. And that tradition of legal theorists that do make that argument, there are a lot of them across the board. That's not like a liberal or conservative thing. That's more of an ethics thing, and it's not absolute. I'm not talking in the case of codification per se. I'm simply talking about the norms of behavior that are required for an open society to function, and that if those fall apart, then you have an empty shell. For example, Hungary and Russia are both formal democracies, but they're not liberal democracies. And that's what happens when these institutions become empty shells, where, yeah, everybody goes and votes. Everybody, yeah, we got a court and everything, but they're not real. They're not actually liberal. They're not based in the liberal tradition. In order to be based in the liberal tradition, you have to understand the ethics of appearance and the ethics of behavior that go beyond the textual requirements and what's codified. Because if all you do is cost benefit analysis and think, oh, well, I probably won't get caught here, or if I do get caught, we'll have to do a trial and everything, and maybe I'll get away with it. Well, you shouldn't be in the court then, and that's a big problem. And the reason why the Supreme Court is so serious, and why it's more serious than the Hunter Biden stuff, why it's more serious than Congress, is that it's the court that would be deciding on any of those other conflicts of interest. If the Supreme Court is compromised, then you literally have to restart your country then, and that's a violent process in order to get it back. That's the issue. So when the open society falls apart, that's when civil wars happen.
How do we as a society all know that this situation is A, like one that Thomas would be compromised in, and B, that he would in that situation be compromised?
Well, the society doesn't actually have to know that. If you're going, like, my point was that if you're in the position of being one of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court, the final court of the United States, all that really matters is that those 9 people know that, for all intents and purposes here, because that's their fucking job. So, and you shouldn't be there if they can't handle that standard.
So I noticed that you're just kind of like actually ignoring the question.
Well, no, you're not, like I said before, you weren't really engaging in the substance of my argument. So
I was.
Can an American
absolutely was.
He doesn't want to engage with it. I'm sorry, he just doesn't. He just wants to keep harping back to these these norms and these traditions.
Because those norms are the foundation of an open society. If you don't like norms, go live in Hungary or Russia, where it's they're a democracy on paper. There's no norms of democratic behavior, but it's a democracy, bro. They have elections.
Have any of you guys actually read the text messages? Do you know the subject matter of them? Do they tie her to an insurrection attempt? Was she advocating somebody overthrow the government?
She just said a lot of dumb shit about the 2020 elections. I didn't really see much about January 6th.
I mean, I haven't actually seen any of her actual texts, right? I see a lot of stuff, a lot of reporters are talking about it. There's a lot of stories about it, but it's a lot of people's opinions about what she's written, right? There's not much in the way of actual substance, and none of the substance so far that I've been able to glean remotely makes it look like she's trying to overthrow the election.
Just to finish.
So
I read some of them. She was saying we need to she was basically advocating to Mark Meadows that the election was stolen.
Yeah, she was doing that 2020 memes.
And that Biden was Biden. Sorry, and one more thing.
A lot of people felt that way, and they have a.
Well, they felt that way because there was a narrative given to them. She was one of the people that created that narrative is the problem. So
guys, it was just a freedom parade, okay?
Sorry.
It was just a freedom parade, everybody.
Wait, MPU, I don't think the actual insurrection is
disingenuous.
Sorry, MPU.
Are we seriously going to get lectured by a guy who's defending January 6th? MPU, dude. Come on,
wait,
dude.
one sec.
You need to shut the fuck up, dude. I'm
No,
not
you.
defending January 6th.
Okay.
No, you
calm down.
do.
Calm down.
January
Wait, I'm
6th.
saying calm.
Don't put words
Everybody
in my
stop.
mouth.
Everybody
Wait,
stop.
sorry.
Team. Okay, and everyone. Give me a second, okay? Because I can't hear anything. Chat can't hear anything, okay? So, raise your hand if you want to speak right now, because Denims has been waiting for a while, and there's other people that want to speak, okay? Now, name your hands if you were involved in that. Now, keep your hands raised if you were involved in the interaction that just happened, okay? Jesus Christ. See, that's the problem. There's 4 people talking at the same time. Okay.
Can I just...
Well, I was directly attacked, Dylan.
Okay, so...
We should give the women more voice.
That is true. But I'm gonna have MPU respond, okay? Then Heem, somebody always gets screwed, okay? And I'm being racist against Canadians. I'm sorry. So MPU, you can respond, but we gotta bring it over to Dems at some point. We gotta move.
Yeah, it'll be
people who want to speak.
30 seconds is all I need. Just because I believe that there were systemic issues with the election doesn't make me a supporter of an insurrection. It's fucked up for you to make that kind of an aspersion, because that is a fucking lifetime prison sentence. Okay? So don't do that. Don't cast aspersion on my character, because I didn't support anybody who was
even
doing
the guys that did it got 4 years, not a lifetime, dude. So even if you literally were there, you'd only get a few months, dude.
No, you throw charged words out there. And it's disingenuous.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one who was making light of the insurrection.
Suit jacket, but really, you're just a guy who won't shut the fuck up.
Suit spooky. Ooh.
No, you're just a fucking loudmouth.
No, you dude. You downplayed an insurrection against the United States, and you're big mad right now because we called you out on your bullshit, dude.
Not big mad, and there's no proof of an insurrection. What you have is a bunch of people who stormed the Capitol, got inside the thing, walked around and did some shit, and did a bunch of fucking damage.
This is like the Ilhan Omar level. They did a thing. They did it. Yeah, what did they do? They tried to hang the vice president of the United States. They tried to take hostage members of Congress, and they tried to overthrow the Democratic Republic of the United States. You fucking goober.
Okay.
Can I just clear it up?
Okay, do it, but you have to say I'm a sexist and I'm taking Denim's times first. Then you can speak. That's the condition.
I agree with this condition, Dylan.
All right, hang on. Okay, so basically what I was saying is, sorry, I was on mute. I don't know if you guys heard it. I think the biggest problem MPU was the delegitimizing of the election result. That's actually, I think, what she was mostly, what she's mostly being accused of. I don't know how much of the accusals are actually specific to January 6th, or how much of it are like the lead up to the election or the post-election, but before January 6th. I think a lot of it is like setting it up for like, hey, Biden's trying to steal the election. Biden did steal the election, the mail-in ballot memes, and so on and so forth. And, you know, I think even that is, you know, questionable. I don't know.
Well, at least two state legislatures have come out, and they are actively working to decertify their election. Now, it has no bearing on the current president, but it basically gives legitimacy to the construct that says that there were things that were done in the 2020 election that actually violated constitutional law.
No, there weren't. No, there weren't.
You're
No,
full
there
of
weren't.
shit.
This is
Biden gonna get removed?
Constitution.
Calm down.
Calm down. Who sets election policy?
Calm down. Oh wait, fuck. Okay, sorry. Denims, do you have a big beard, a red hat, and like all your people up on the screen? Because I'm a little too dazed and confused at the moment. Do you want to nuke North Korea? Well then, if neither of those things are true, then I don't believe you're speaking right now, and it's your turn to speak. So I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Really quickly, I I feel like I just want to talk about one specific thing. I feel like there's been like a lot of like talking past each other on something with regard to like the points that Superpower Broadcasting was bringing up. Like I mean, you're welcome to like interrupt me or correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you're saying like, oh, like, you know, society should decide for him to recuse himself. You know, like the general populace should do this. And I don't think you're even saying that like there is like some legislative body that should dictate whether or not you recuse yourself.
Yeah,
All
making
you're
the
saying,
opposite point.
all you're saying is like, yeah, sure. All you're saying is like, hey, if you feel there's a conflict of interest, maybe, you should recuse yourself from this because you want the people in your country to have faith in the systems that exist. There's not like I would at the very least say, okay, we're not saying like, well, he should do this and we should force him to do this. More so like it's the correct, decent thing to do.
Exactly.
So people in your country
So the problem,
have faith in your system. It doesn't like that's it. There's nothing if you don't have to do it. There doesn't necessarily have to be something that forces you to do it.
And we have this, and we expect this from our judges across the board, local, state, federal. However, the problem with SCOTUS is the types of cases that they hear are often dealing in issues that are broad and wide-reaching. And if we hold
that's not true, though.
SCOTUS,
no, the particular case that he didn't recuse himself on of relevance here is about the transfer of specific communications to a House committee, bipartisan House committee, investigating an insurrection against the United States that took place on January 6th. That is a very specific. No. But that's a very specific case. Like you're acting like they're just philosopher kings or whatever, bro. Like this is a meme. No, they deal with very technical issues too. They deal with the broad and the specific, and so that's why this is important.
Again, I'll remind you, he did not know about these texts when he ruled and made his decision on that.
That you know of, but there's a high likelihood that he did, and he didn't recuse himself. And the thing is, because your argument, for it to make sense,
I think
he had to be in the dark about everything. He had to be in the dark about Jenny Thomas and her communications with Meadows. He had to be in the dark about her political activity. He had to be in the dark about everything, and I don't buy that. But even if you're right, even if you're totally right, and he just didn't know and everything, the fact that this is going on, the fact that, or I shouldn't say even if you're right, the fact that even Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett said, yeah, you got to hand over those documents. Like, look, we like Trump, but don't get me wrong, we were not going to obstruct justice. The fact that he voted against that suggests to us that he did know is the problem.
Do you have his voting
narrative? With your narrative,
do you have his voting track record?
Fucking facts, not evidence.
Yeah.
Right,
well,
no,
the fact is that he
really quick question,
was
Kevin.
against the transfer of communications.
I've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, you are next, and then it's half baked after you. And
Sick.
Then
all right. My question is for the people who don't believe he should recuse himself. What do you think? Where is the line? Like, what do you need to see in order to feel he should recuse himself?
I can answer that.
Go ahead. You can take it first. And I'll
Okay. All right, thanks. So for me, what I would like to say, and I'm not saying that it's an impossibility, it is entirely possible, but from what I've seen, I have not seen that there's a specific link from his wife's behavior, which is, everybody agrees, which she's a loon. She's fallen down a bad rabbit hole, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would like to see some kind of specific link to the like something that's being investigated in that January 6th case by Thomas. So if
do you see the appearance of that there could be a link? Do you understand the appearance argument?
Okay,
we're not saying that this is literally the
Kevin, it's really not worthwhile to jump in every time they're trying to give their answer, because right now they'll tell you the baseline that you need to argue against. You keep trying to just say he should recuse over and over, and this precedent has been set, but that argument's not working. So why not listen to what we need to appeal to them, before you just keep jumping in.
Because I don't appeal to goobers on goober terms. I stay consistent regardless. No, but that's bullshit. Like if we got a Groiper on here that's all about race realism, I'm not going to appeal to them based on like, oh, well, how can I appeal? No, we got to deal with facts, bro. We got to deal with facts, bro.
He should recuse himself because he's black. Then sure, we can say that, but like we need to listen to their arguments first, dude.
Yeah, well, I've already heard these arguments. These arguments are lame.
Like Kevin, you could just shout everybody down.
Well, no. The irony there is that you were the one who was mitigating and minimizing an attempt to shut American democracy down. So that's
has nothing to do with shutting down American democracy. You're taking
no, you. I think you wouldn't even engage in my argument.
Rizzo asked a perfectly good question. We're trying to expand further because you said very one specific thing, that there needs to be the perception, the appearance of impropriety, right? And I'm trying to address the fact that
whether you like it or not, it's there.
That both Thomas is incapable to appraise the situation as it's in its entirety, which means that there must be some kind of evidence, firstly, and secondly, we need more than just the media coverage. The media coverage is the only thing. I didn't
argue for the media coverage.
He needs to.
I argue the exact opposite point.
That says, which is what I was trying to say, and you didn't seem to get it before. The only thing that shows that there's a compromise, an appearance of impropriety, is the media coverage.
No, that's not true. That's not true. My point, as Denham's noted, she understood what I was saying, and apparently you have a hard time following this. Is that even if everybody else in the country didn't know anything about what the Supreme, if they didn't even know the Supreme Court existed, let's just say, all that matters is that those 9 justices understand an appearance of impropriety and know right and wrong and how to behave without having to literally consult some manual on what they can and can't get away with. My point was that it's not about, oh, does CNN talk about it? It's that you should know before this even comes to public attention, because curious. You're literally on the Supreme Court of the United States. It's kind of a big deal, bro.
The case has
kind of a big deal, bro.
Wait, do you have evidence, Kevin? Do you have any evidence that the case?
But you're just making evidence memes. But I'm talking about the appearance.
Okay.
Wait. I'm talking about the appearance.
Wait. I wasn't done. I wasn't.
Came before the.
Okay, that's 2 now. Who's next? Who's next? Anybody else? Okay, so the next person on the list is gonna be Maple. So I'm throwing it over to Maple.
Wait. Oh my God, am I Maple? Okay. Yeah. So there's a couple of problems here. Firstly, you mentioned that you don't have to just like read it from a manual on how to act. You didn't really think that statement through, did you? Because when you think about it, they go to school, and you know what they do in law school? They read a lot of manuals. And you know what manuals are? Manuals are books. They read a lot of books, and they try to figure out how to learn, how to be a lawyer, how to be a judge, etc. So this whole fucking point, like
no, but this is such a meme, dude. Okay. Because my point is that ethics transcend
Kevin.
Rise up.
Let him finish.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, so what you don't seem to understand is that you're saying that you're implying that Thomas is compromised, and that there's a clear instance that everybody except Thomas is able to see that there's an appearance of impropriety, right? So I don't think it's unreasonable to say, like, what is your actual evidence that there's an appearance of impropriety? What gives you this perception? What makes you think this way, right? Because for the rest of us, we don't see that there's enough evidence, there's enough proof that shows that there's an appearance of impropriety.
So you understand that an appearance of impropriety is different from literal impropriety. You understand that, right? Because a conflict of interest, you don't need everybody in the country talking about it. You don't need the media talking about it for a conflict of interest to exist. And guess what? A conflict of interest doesn't mean you're guilty and that you're done and you can't be a Supreme Court justice anymore. It simply says ethics-wise, and that ethics transcend text. By the way, if what you're saying is true, then the Supreme Court justices would just be autonomous robots that we could just replace them with. No, there's obviously an ethical element that comes in that goes beyond the code. Because if all you needed to be a Supreme Court justice was just, oh, you read some books and you passed some tests, you passed your bar exam, well, that's kind of a problem. That's kind of a problem.
Why are you shifting the goalposts? Your standard before was not that they should recuse themselves if they have a conflict of interest. You just said they should recuse themselves if there is the perception that they might have, like,
what do you
have
think a conflict of interest is? What's your name? Half Baked Takes. What do you think a conflict of interest is?
Wow, surprising. That's the question I was trying to get them to answer. Holy shit.
Yeah, having a direct, like, he would have to be ruling on a case where her evidence would be circumstantial to that, like, to the rule, or his ruling would have to be like related to that.
So,
Like,
so
it'd
the
have to
case
be
that Amy
presented
Coney
in that
Barrett
case. It would have to
and
be direct
Kavanaugh both
conflict of
said they had to transfer documents, but he said no. He said no. He already ruled on that case. That's why, look, I'm not even making the argument. I'm not even making the argument that he doesn't know. I'm thinking he does know, and he's not going to recuse himself.
So that's your opinion.
Because
you literally just said I'm thinking.
No, dude.
I just wanted
you were being very charitable to Thomas by saying, well, everybody else sees this appearance, but he doesn't. No, I think he sees it too, but he's not going to do it because, well, he can technically get away with it because of lifetime appointment, etc. My point is that Supreme Court justices shouldn't think like that. That they should be ethical.
I just want to stress the fact that you just owned up to the fact that Vadim was right, that this is your opinion. You said, I think.
I never said it wasn't my opinion, but guess
what?
That's
great.
Guess what? They literally have opinions in the Supreme Court. I mean, an opinion where there are actual justice, there are actually people in the judiciary, there are people that actually study this stuff that also talk about how an appearance of impropriety is a problem, that even if the court technically has the authority to make laws, if nobody trusts the court, if the court has no integrity, then those laws become meaningless. That's a big problem. And conservatives and goobercons right now are trying to basically wither away the norms and the value, the soft value of institutions based on, well, we got these hard documents here that say that technically he's allowed to stay. It's like, yeah, guess what? Your country's going to become an illiberal democracy if you allow that standard to be your only standard. Oh, well, he read books. He read books. Give me a break, bro.
So because Clarence Thomas's wife is a loon and thinks that the election was fraudulent, that means the SCOTUS as an institution is at threat.
Well, what do you think a conflict of interest is? I just want you to define for me a conflict of interest. Can both of you, Breeze Live and Half Baked Takes, can you define what you believe a conflict of interest means?
I mean, if you
in context,
we'll go one at a time. We'll go with Half Baked Takes. What's a conflict of interest?
I'm telling you, it would.
No, I just want to answer.
You are ruling on a case where the parties involved, you have a direct link to the parties involved, or the circumstance of your decision will directly, that's a big word right there, directly impact you or a close party association that you hold.
Okay. And Breeze, what's your definition of a conflict of interest?
It's going to be really simple. I'm going to ask you a question. Those texts that you're leaning on, what was the date?
No, but I just asked you a question. What is a conflict of interest?
Conflict of interest is going to be when there's something specific that falls under the case that he's covering, right? So he has to have like a specific case that he's covering where somebody like his spouse, somebody, I think it's like 3 degrees of kinship or something like that. Like there's a whole host of different conditions for like a conflict of interest that require like conditions for recusal.
Okay, but so I guess my point here is that you recognize that conflict of interest doesn't necessarily mean that you are guilty of something per se. It means that there's a compromising factor, even outside of your control potentially, that would give an appearance of impropriety.
Do you understand that I'm not saying that Thomas is guilty of anything? What I was saying is that I'm saying that Thomas is incapable of appraising the situation. This doesn't mean that he's guilty, but rather I speak to his ability to appraise the situation. I'm not talking about his guilt in any term.
And even if he's perfectly capable of appraising it, that doesn't mean that he should, is the point. Because of ethics.
The other point that I'm making is you have to... So I didn't speak to his guilt. I was talking about his wife's guilt, right? So if his wife is guilty about something, or like his wife is involved in the case, right? When we're talking about recusal, which is actually really funny because we're going back to what I originally said at the very fucking start about how there should be like pretty clear conditions, and you're actually delineating that there's some like conditions, that there are still like conflict of interest in this like appearance of impropriety. We know, right? Somebody linked it in chat that, and there's like U.S. courts documents that you can look at, that there are still conditions under like Canon 1 and 2 and 2A and 1A, right? So
And apply to the
unless
Supreme Court.
well, all right, I stand corrected.
Applies to all inferior. Those apply to all inferior courts.
Okay.
The Supreme Court, the Supreme Court sets its own conduct rules, right? And there have been cases where Supreme Court justices who had cases that were lower appellate court or district court judges, they got on to the Supreme Court and they recused themselves for cases that would come before them that they had ruled on previously or been party to previously. Lena Kagan did it with the ACA. I think Amy Coney Barrett, Justice Gorsuch said that they would recuse themselves from some cases that might make their way up to the Supreme Court. It really is, it's based on the integrity of the justice. Now, if a case comes before the Supreme Court related to January 6th, okay, and Jenny Thomas's text messages are a crucial element to that case, guess what? He's going to recuse himself, and if he's not, then everybody should stand there and stand for have him stand trial for an impeachment. He should, right? If there's a legitimate conflict of interest, but just simply saying this now at this point when you don't even know, Kevin doesn't even know the fucking substance of the text, but he's saying yes, there's a conflict of interest because she had an opinion on the 2020 election. Guess what? Every fucking buddy in the United States and a lot of people outside the United States had an opinion on the fucking election.
Oh, so you're admitting that there's a conflict of interest. That's an embarrassing thing that would cast embarrassment on him and his reputation. And that's why you oppose him being overturned in the investigation.
When they grant the writ of certiorari, they can look at it and say, this is what it is. And he can go, you know what? I can't have a party of this. I'll recuse myself. But asking a justice to Halfbake takes his point earlier, asking a justice to arbitrarily do it because somebody can gin up the appearance of impropriety, okay, would basically every justice would be a target every case that would come before the court. And this is
you don't need somebody to gin up the appearance of impropriety. The appearance of impropriety is an intrinsic thing.
No, it's problematic if you start out with the assumption that there is always a conflict of interest. And that's exactly
I didn't say there's always a conflict of interest. You can recognize that there's a conflict of interest here.
Not even American.
And if you can't, then you're nuts.
Kevin, you just told me to prove that there wasn't a conflict of interest.
No, I asked you for a definition of a conflict of interest earlier.
No. I was talking about the other 30 minutes of this conversation.
Oh, great. Yeah, sure. Okay, so what's your point? No. What's your point?
There is no direct conflict of interest in this case.
But I'm not saying no. When you say direct conflict of interest, you're being very particular with your wording because you understand that there's material that's compromising the Thomas family, and that there's an incentive that he would have to not have that come to light. So he might rule against having the investigative committee bring that to public light, which he did. So when you say direct, I mean, very careful with your words. Okay. So
Kevin, again, he didn't know about any of this conflict of interest that you were talking about until
how do you know that?
Recently.
How do you know that? Because his activity, even Kavanaugh voted to let those communications come to light. So why do you just assume he didn't know? I'm not saying that he knew. I'm just saying that the evidence based on his record indicates that he might know and might not have wanted to come to light, and that's why he was the only dissenting
based
opinion
on his record. Do you have anything more of his record besides just that singular vote? Like, I'm just curious.
But that singular vote is what's relevant here, though.
Sure,
I'm not talking about
he's in that time span, right? In that time span, what other contention?
He's been on a court since 1987.
But this issue just happened.
Involving January 6, 2020
no, I get it.
are
He's
pretty
been on the court
specific.
since
Who cares if
1987.
he's been on for
Okay, wait.
It happened in 2020.
Never been accused
Wait, stop.
of anything that is improper.
Jesus Christ. Okay, 1 second. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, now I hear you, Dylan.
Wait, I think what it is that I've been practicing so much Ukrainian and Polish and Russian that I must be speaking in another language, and that's why nobody is understanding me or hearing me. So I'm just gonna ask quickly, like, let's bring our voices down a bit, because it feels like a lot of people's talking voices is their yelling voices. Like, if you want to yell, that's banger content. I love it, but don't make every single sentence yelling, or then it all it loses the impact, you know. Anyway. Is there anybody who hasn't been going back and forth for the last half an hour that would like to speak on this topic before we start moving on?
Kevin?
No one? Okay. Wonderful. Then I think it's probably time to wrap this topic up. We'll give everybody a closing statement so we can get to the last topic of the night. I'm going to throw it over to Maple Man.
Thank you, Ukrainian, Polish, something economic immigrant. Immigrant, I guess I should say. I honestly don't really care that much. I just want to appreciate that it was two Canadians arguing about this for the longest time, and I want to try a hashtag Canada Rising. That this is just evidence that Canada does in fact run the show, and that there's just a lot more intellectual superiority in Canada over the U.S. And honestly, like I said, if there's evidence that shows that Ginny Thomas is linked in any way to the January 6th, 100%, he should probably recuse himself, because one thing I didn't contend is that the philosophy underpinning a lot of that other bearded Canadian was saying was pretty true.
Okay, I'm going to now throw it over to Half Baked Takes.
Yeah, just to echo that last point, we have to have the recusal aspect to the Supreme Court. It is important. There are certain instances where it's we have to, we expect justices to do it, but to say that it should be done every time that there could be a perception of a conflict of interest, not a actual conflict of interest, but the perception of one, there's just no way that SCOTUS could operate or, give effective rulings.
Him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's it's not just this issue. Again, I have a big issue with how you can govern or control or restrict the family involvement, people's families' involvements when it comes to political issues and matters. But I will say that, it's really disappointing that someone who's supposed to be, in such a prestigious position, their partner is this down the rabbit hole. It just goes to show you that literally everyone can fall into it. No one's safe. And I do think that now, I going forward, maybe a recusal would make sense, just to say, hey, because of the prestige, because of how pure it's supposed to be or whatever, hey, for this one, I'm gonna sit this one out. Fucking, I don't know, it doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world to me. But yeah, I mean, I would love to one day live in a world where politicians' family members can't influence the politicians themselves so much.
Okay, I'm now gonna throw it over to Vadim.
Yeah, I don't have anything that deep to say. I just, the possibility that the Supreme Court is currently influenced by batshit QAnon garbage. It just sounds like we definitely don't know that with any certainty, but it also seems like that's not too far of a stretch. And that alone is just demented and terrifying. And what makes it even more so is just that all of our courts and political institutions are already there. This is just, kind of what I can't stop thinking about as I listen to this conversation. And no doubt, I've been reading up on it. She's totally full tilt. Hillary Clinton is drinking adrenochrome milkshakes, level QAnon. And I'm just glad that I'm not tripping on acid right now, because this conversation and what it says more broadly about the norms, the political norms we have right now, it would plunge me into a cosmically horrible, bad trip that would make being tortured by Cenobites from Hellraiser like cuddling with my cats. So I don't know if there's anything that we can glean from this. It's just, guys, hug your cats.
Going over to Ryzom.
I think, my position from earlier hasn't really shifted. It also seems like I haven't been able to really dig through this, but it also seems like there's been numerous times in the past where Supreme Court justices have recused themselves from cases, even when there proves to be no connection between them and the case, just so that they don't end up looking bad. I do wish that I could cut over all of the noise canceling conservatives that I was hearing, all that noise canceling conservative take that were coming out of people's mouths over here. But yeah, we never really got to the bottom of it. So
okay, throwing it over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So, as I was kind of making the point earlier, an appearance of an impropriety is a big problem in this case, because you've got the Supreme Court of the United States. The buck stops with the Supreme Court. So if your Supreme Court is corrupt, there's no higher body to appeal to. And if that falls, that's at a point where that's when civil wars start. So it is very important to take even the slightest potential issue seriously at the Supreme Court, because those 9 justices do need to be held to a higher standard than simply just, what's in the guidelines or what's in the in my codes, basically. No, they're justices. They know that the law is more than just whatever is written down. There's also a spirit, and an open society requires its institutions to not be empty shells, but rather that their norms actually be backed up by integrity. And I wish that recusal was more common, so that it wasn't such a shameful thing, so that you could just do it and nobody just assumes you're guilty. It's just the right thing to do if there's any sort of potential for impropriety. I think one of the reasons why, I guess, the Canadians on this panel, myself included, talk about this so much, I don't know. We do corruption a lot less. Canada's kind of schooling the United States on a lot of issues. The Commonwealth legal system, generally speaking, the Commonwealth countries do a better job of modeling open society better than the United States. We deal with hate speech better. We got a lot of things that we do better in Canada and the Commonwealth than in the U.S. And you guys could learn from us, and maybe American society wouldn't have such a divisive social fabric. So thank you. Look forward to the next topic.
Okay, over to MPU.
Yeah, since 2002, there have been 44 formal requests for Supreme Court justices to recuse themselves. Justice Ginsburg facilitated gay weddings, yet was part of the case that made gay marriage, or the Equality Act, law of the land, right? So nobody bitched about that, because that was the outcome that people wanted to have. Whatever. It was her choice to recuse. She didn't. The standard shouldn't be, the standard for the Supreme Court isn't if anybody can sort of gin up the pretext of a case that you should recuse yourself. However, the justices, every one of the justices, whether I agree with their judicial philosophy or not, are people of integrity. And they understand that if a case comes before them, particularly a case on the merits, that if that case has something that, if they were to rule on it, that would look untoward or would show a judicial bias, I think they are all of sufficient character that they would recuse themselves. And the Constitution provides a remedy if they don't. So it's called impeachment. And I think until you can show, Kevin, that there is a legitimate actual cause, then Justice Thomas is going to do what he's going to do. Now, whether he recuses himself because of political pressure, public pressure, whatever, or there's an actual merits case, it's going to be up to him, because that's the way it works. And that's the way it's worked for a long fucking time.
Okay. And now I'm going to throw it over to Denims, because Denims had to walk away.
I was doing very important streamer things, okay? I'm sure you can understand. Yeah, I think it should be on I think it should be on Clarence if he decides that he wants to recuse himself. And I think that I don't know, the conflict of interest is there when he was the only Supreme Justice that voted against the court decision on whether or not to look into the January 6th stuff. So I don't know. Even there, none of the other conservative judges did, and I think that's a little bit, a little bit weird. But yeah, that's it. That's my only opinion.
Okay. And with that wrapping up, we're going to go into the last topic of the night. And this one I'm excited for because marijuana legalization is once again being debated in the House. Biden has not come out in support of it, and everybody's debating it, and there's a good chance we're going to see a bill in the Senate. The odds of it passing very low. But this, I think, gives us a good opportunity to not only talk about marijuana legalization, but drug decriminalization generally. So here's just a broad question for us to use as a starting point. We can get to the political legislation that's being proposed now. Do you support drugs being decriminalized? Basically, drugs across the board, people being not thrown in prison or thrown in jail for the consuming of those drugs. We're now going to start with MPU.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you what you probably are gonna think is an unusual take for a guy my age. I don't think it is the role of the federal government to control drugs that are particularly used in a recreational sense. And I also don't think the federal government should be paying or allocating funds to take care of people who fuck up their lives because they've done recreational drugs. I think it is a states' rights issue. I think the Drug Control Act I think it's unconstitutional. It's been upheld as being constitutional. And because it was done by statute, Congress has the ability, based on precedent, on that holding precedent, they have the ability to decriminalize it or say that we're not gonna manage it anymore, right? I think it's a kind of atrocious that there are drugs that Adderall is not as tough within the schedule class. I think it's a Schedule 2 drug or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a recreational pharmaceutical user. But I think it's less of a problem to have Adderall than it is to have marijuana, right? So I think it's a states' rights issue, to be honest. And I think if states want to make it legal, they want to tax it, they want to do whatever they want, that's fine. I don't care, right? I don't do it. I think that the big issue is just like alcohol. There are negative externalities that are associated with drug consumption, and I think if states are going, if the federal government's going to step away from it, which I think they should, states need to have a plan in place for how they're going to effectively deal with it, deal with the negative externalities that are associated with it. And one of those things can't be, well, we're going to let you fuck up your life, and then we're going to pick you up, we're going to prop you up for 30 or 40 years on the government dime, even at the state level. I would disagree with that as a fundamental philosophy.
Okay. I'm now going to throw it over to Kevin Kasheem. What's up?
Can I go next?
Sure.
Okay. I feel strongly about this topic. I'm just going to respond to a few things MPU said because I took some notes. And then I'll go into my bigger argument. So MPU said that it shouldn't be a federal situation. I'm just wondering, like, it doesn't make sense to me to have something be illegal in one state where you can go to jail for it, and then it's like you can go to a convenience store and buy it in another. That to me makes no sense. Like you want to have a little bit of consistency across your country. Otherwise, you have to go through the trouble of like learning every state's laws as you drive through it or something. I don't know. To me, it's weird. And then you say you don't want the federal government to manage it. I would say keeping it illegal on a federal level is them managing it. This would just be legalizing it, right? Like you're putting your hands up, but it kind of is. But anyways, maybe we can go into that a little bit later. We can go into it later. And then you were talking about Adderall. I think Adderall is, first of all, very with the insane demand that society has from people to be at their ultra most efficient performance. I think Adderall is, for me personally, it saved my life. And I think that if it's not available to people in a regulated way, that people will get it from the street, and it's something that's chemically, lab created, and can easily be messed with. It just looks like a regular pill. It could be laced. It could be anything if it's not well regulated. And then you said that like a lot of these drugs fuck up people's lives. But I think the evidence bears out that at least for things like marijuana or mushrooms, these things are not fucking up people's lives enough to justify banning them. And I live in Canada. Marijuana has been legal here since 2018, and there hasn't been any horrible outcomes other than people being way more chill.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw it over to Half Baked.
So one, federally, it's ridiculous that we try to restrict drug use, and it seems like a continuous, like they're always going to be failing to accomplish the goal, which is to get people to stop doing drugs, which people aren't going to stop doing drugs. On a state by state basis, we live in a federalist system. So if one state wants to legalize it or wants to have it be criminalized, then that's their decision. And sadly, if you want to live in this great country, you got to like navigate the different states' laws as you go through them. But drugs on the whole, too, just I would legalize them all. It doesn't seem to help.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Rhizome.
All right, yeah. My take is pretty simple. Responsible drug use is based, and we should work to facilitate that through federal means as much as possible. People are going to do them anyways. Supply and demand will always exist. Fighting the demand by limiting the supply has never worked. The DEA has a less than 1% efficiency rate, stopping the flow of drugs. Prohibition makes drugs stronger, more dangerous, gives people perverse incentives for profit. There's also, when it's illegal, no access to systems to settle disputes. So crime becomes the way disputes get settled. So it's a human rights issue as well, or just like, a mitigating harm issue as well. So give them a path, give people who want to use drugs a path to do them safely with government oversight and standards, with social programs to encourage safe, responsible use and give us the ability to turn the revenue generated into taxes.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Vadim.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that Biden, that this was going to be discussed in, as a possible law. And sorry, again, a little out of it tonight. But yeah, it's just like, what the fuck, dude? Why? It seems to be like to be a home run, like something that he could really take advantage of, and he definitely needs some wins right now. Other than that, yeah, I'm very glad that like for instance, people like the More Perfect Union MPU feel similarly to what I think most of us do, that this should be it should be legalized. But yeah, I don't buy the states' rights on this issue. Just general well-being and regulating drugs in general, like that just is way more important than it totally trumps states' rights in that situation. And yeah, just in general, yeah, legalize all drugs. Do it.
Okay, now we're gonna throw it over to Maple.
Thank you. I think we should decriminalize all drugs. I view it a lot of the same way that I view sex work, by keeping it out of regulated society and like normative society. We create both black markets, and we create places where a lot of the times that drugs can, as Rhizome noticed, I think he made a couple of really base points. Drugs get stronger. We have less oversight on how the drugs are made through not necessarily just like state regulation, but through like the market itself. The market itself saying like, whoa, like this guy is cutting corners on making his cheeseburgers. He's using like really cheap cheese or something. So I don't want to go there. I want to go to the place that makes uses like local farm cheese and like consumer preferences. I think that if we treat sex work and drugs in a lot more favorable light, like all other areas of society, we'll see that all the negatives are actually just largely a result of keeping it taboo and on the fringe of society, and that they're more or less like manufactured problems.
Okay, and Denims?
Yeah, I mean, I think all drugs should be decriminalized. I'm not sure how many drugs should be legalized, but I definitely think every single drug should be decriminalized. There's just no reason, even in the instance of like having like a meth addiction or a heroin addiction, criminalizing that drug doesn't do anything for those people. All it does is like hurt them. And we have instances where we have like regulated environments where we can help people, and those are like you have death rates, 0% death rates. You have instances where people are like, I think 30% more likely to quit that drug than in instances outside of these clinics. Like it's just better. It's just better to not treat these people as criminals because they have access to drugs. Drugs should all just be decriminalized. There's just no reason for them to not be.
Okay, so is there anybody in here who wants to criminalize any drug?
Wait,
I think that there might be some drugs that should be like controlled, but I don't know if they should be like criminalized. But well, so maybe
You
I
can say
guess
that
as a
bath
result,
salt shit. That shit that was making people eat each other's faces. Yeah, you could
Or
you
like-
could make that illegal.
Yeah.
What about,
I'm
like,
gonna go out and
kratom?
hot take and say that's a
Yeah,
about
any
kratom?
drugs that turn
Kratom?
you into a zombie.
What about
Separating
kratom?
possession and manufacturing of drugs is important too. We're talking about the users and not the people who like make or distribute the drugs. Typically,
Oh, so okay, so if you make it illegal, if you decriminalize the use of it and then you criminalize the manufacture of it, you really see the problem that you're up against here, right?
Wait,
I want to challenge a couple things that some of you guys actually
my
said.
opening yet.
Oh, wait, you didn't get your opening
sorry.
yet, Kevin?
I didn't get to
Sorry.
give my opening.
Okay, then
because
I'll
we
let
went to Ian.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah,
My
so
apologies.
thanks.
I was just going off of what Dylan said, so I apologize.
Yeah, so because it's the opening for the next topic, I just want to briefly address something that was mentioned in the closing of the last topic, which was something that MPU brought up about how, well, Clarence Thomas, they've done it for decades. He can stay on if he wants to and everything. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I understand how the U.S. legal system operates. All that I was pointing out is that if you follow that to its logical conclusion and everybody behaves that way, you wind up within a liberal system like Hungary or Turkey very quickly. And that's not a place that you want to turn a country like the US or any other liberal democracy into. And so that's a really dark road to go down. Probably best to avoid that. And the best way that you avoid that is by proactively saying, well, I'm just going to recuse myself, not to say that I'm guilty, but just simply as a precaution against basically the descent into the abyss of illiberal tyranny. So my opening for this issue is that, yeah, I support the decriminalization of drugs. I don't think that anybody who uses drugs, especially addicts, should be going to jail for getting addicted to a substance. But I guess this is the part where now it turns into an interesting panel, because I'm not for legalization. Like, I'm for legalizing weed, but look, a lot of these hard drugs fuck up lives. Like, my family was ruined by drugs. I'm not going to be supporting the legalization of meth, but I'm also not one of those people who pretends that we can just solve this problem by putting people in jail for selling it. My solution, and this is a point that was actually brought up in 2019 by Pete Buttigieg, a progressive candidate for the Democratic Party at the time, intervene in Mexico and Central America, and I would support Canadian-American joint intervention and military force to wipe out the cartels, and then follow that up with a massive economic stimulus. We're talking big money into those economies to stabilize and prosper those countries. That will reduce undocumented immigration and reduce the flow of drugs, because you'll have those economies look more and more like the UK, Canada, and the US than they do right now, where these cartels have completely deprived the Mexican people, the Honduran people, of their right to grow and become, a fully functioning, stable, developed economy. So this is in everybody's interest to intervene in there and take out those drugs. No different than going after the Taliban, basically. So thank you.
Okay.
You realize so well. Right?
Vadim, you wanted to start us off?
Yeah, real quick. Dylan, I have to apologize because, speaking of drugs, it just so happens that I was prescribed something new, which I took today. And I was told that it would have the ability of, for the first several days, of kind of making me hazy and just out of it. And that has definitely occurred. So I think I should step out because I'm just like, I'm no bueno. But thanks for having me. I hope I can come back another time soon when I'm just not like my brain doesn't feel like it's floating in an aquarium. And can I just say one last thing real quick?
Sure.
I just want, again, people to know that because a lot of people recently have been writing me saying like, hey, have you stopped making videos and stuff? And again, no, I'm very much back. I have like a big kind of video that I've been working on for a really long time that I'm excited about. That's probably going to drop next weekend. And it's really just been kind of, health stuff, which for the most part, even in spite of what's going on right now with me, have really been ironed out. And I'm psyched by that. So thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I had fun talking with you all and hope I wasn't like too spaced out. Probably was. Anyway, have a great night, guys. Okay?
Yeah,
Nice
have a good
meeting you,
night.
Vadim.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
later.
Chatting with you.
Okay.
Feel better, buddy.
Who wants to grab
Thanks.
Who wants to grab the staff here?
Yeah, let me grab it real quick because I got a couple challenges to people's opens, if that's okay.
Sexual.
Okay. So a couple of things that several of you guys put out was that if you legalize drugs, it'll keep them from getting stronger, or it'll be tax revenue. Both of those things are false. In California, where rec weed's been legal for a long time, now again, understand my initial point is that the federal government should not be in the business of criminalizing or criminalizing recreational drug use. I think that there are reasonable moral limits to what is allowable, right? But I think those limits ought to be put in at the state level. And for those who say, well, you just, Hakeem, I think you said it, well, you got to have 50 different state policies. That's exactly what the founders intended, right?
But are there
They
some
intended,
legal laws?
They intended in a representative republic, the states retained their sovereignty and they work collectively together for things like common defense, trade, and international relations. That's how the Constitution is set up, right? The federal government actually overstepped. The federal government actually overstepped its authority because they did a prohibition. They did an amendment to prohibit alcohol, but when they wanted to do drugs, they just said, "Fuck it, we're going to pass a law," right? Why do an amendment? Why do an amendment if you're going to turn around and just say, "Well, no, we don't need an amendment. We could do it," but they had to create an amendment to get rid of the other amendment, right? So that's problematic there. The other thing is legal drugs, the ones that are taxed and profit makers for the state of California, are actually significantly more potent than they were before. And the rise of illegal drug farms, because people are out there, cartels are actually coming across the border and they're taking place out in the desert. They're setting up grow farms in the desert. Okay. And they're making illegal weed so that they can sell it without having to pay the tax. So neither one of the statements that people who like to make the argument about legalizing drugs, and I know most people are all about the legalizing the weed. It's true on both cases that they are the legal drugs are more strong, and that it does nothing to dissuade illegal growing because there's still the tax, and people are going to try to maximize their profit. And then they do that by making illegal stuff and they just run it off the side.
MPU, should I have a cheeseburger today? I don't know what the founding fathers said about that.
Don't be stupid.
Really quick.
Don't be stupid.
And then we're going to go to the Hakeem.
MPU, you do understand that California could fuck something up and do something in just a completely like illogical way or inefficient way, and the entire thing not be like a bad idea. Like you wouldn't say that about 90%.
Oh no, yeah,
California.
Yeah, you got right. You and I are on the same page. Each state should make their own law with respecting what they're going to allow. So yeah, California could fuck it up, and Colorado could do it right. But guess what? No state that's done it has done it right.
Well, no, Michigan's done it right.
I'm not okay, but I'll cede that point because I don't know.
Michigan and I think Colorado too has generated billions of dollars in tax revenue that they've then pumped into their schools. I'm like
right.
99%
Yeah,
sure it goes
and then
all into education.
people are taking drugs out of Colorado and they're taking them into surrounding states. Now, I guess the argument, right, is that if it's legal
That's an
everywhere,
argument for
then that's less likely to happen.
That's
But it
what-
still doesn't address the
Federalism,
potency
baby.
thing, right? Because people can breed, they can cross strain, they can do all different kinds of funky stuff.
Yeah, so I got a question for people that.
No, bullshit. It was my turn. I had my fucking hand up. Sit there, Kevin, for 1 second, okay? So first of all, you're saying that it's stronger, okay? I don't disagree that it can be stronger. My initial point was that you're making sure that it's pure. You're not gonna get some laced shit if you're getting like Adderall or some shit or some sort of chemical that's lab made that looks white, like a white pill. You're not gonna get laced from the federal government. That's my first point. Second point, even when it comes to things like weed, with something like edibles, okay, when they have a prescribed milligram dosage, when you buy it on the black market, they just stamp some bullshit on the fucking thing. When you buy it from the government or from the approved dispensaries, those things are tested to make sure that there's a specific amount of THC inside of them. So that's the first part, right? The second part, when you're bringing up the tax money and having the competing black market, I agree with you because again, I live in Canada. It's been legal for 4 years now. At the start, the black market was actually competitive still with the regulated market. However, over time, the price of the regulated market, because they're producing on such scale, they were able to drive that price so low that it makes the black market non-competitive anymore. So over time, of course, there's going to be tax money that's raised. It's just about how you do it. And then the last point I wanted to bring up is, I guess, like, why do you differentiate between alcohol and weed in this situation? I didn't really get what you were saying.
I wasn't. That. I said if states make it legal, then they need to come up with a way to deal with negative consequences, and rightfully so. Alcohol is a good point, right? There are consequences to deal with the negative externalities associated with alcohol abuse, right? They just need to make sure that they're logically and legally consistent with.
Is alcohol legal on a federal
state bounds?
Is alcohol legal on a federal level in the U.S.?
No, it's just
it's not legal or illegal.
It is
prohibited. It's the state's rights issue.
Okay, so I mean, but currently weed is illegal under federal law, right?
It is. You know, the bill before the Senate notwithstanding. To change.
Okay, so then yeah, I guess like the advocacy would be like, obviously it's the same thing here. Like in Canada, all the provinces have their own system. One province said you can have 3 plants, grow 3 plants in your house. Another province said you can grow 2 plants in your house or whatever, per household, whatever, right? Different laws for different states or different provinces, but still on the federal level, it's legal. I can fly I can get in a plane right now with an ounce of weed and fly across Canada and not be worried, or drive across Canada and not be worried. Sure. I guess it's just weird that like with so much people moving across states that you wouldn't have a consistency in some basic way.
Well, so I think that the intention of the Senate bill is to make it possible so that you could fly from California to Virginia, right? Nobody's going to check your bags for that. But if you get stopped in Virginia, I'm just making an argument. I don't know. I think it might be legal in Virginia too, all right? But if you go from a state where it's legal to a state that it's not legal, you'd have to have, it's not a primary offense. You'd have to be stopped for something else for them to see it and have a reasonable suspicion at that point. I think what you're going to see is that because they've made so much money in Colorado and in California and other states where it is legal, and like you're saying, you're making the argument that tax revenue in Canada is pretty significant. I think that it's the pull of the tax revenue is pretty compelling to legislators, right? Because it's a way to either try to balance the books or put money into some other program or whatever, right? So
it's a big industry that you want to be accounted for. Yeah,
I think. Well, no, I get that, but I think it's going to level out in terms of, is it legal, illegal in these states? I think eventually, within 5 or 10 years in the United States, if they decriminalize it at the federal level, it will be legal all the way across. My question is, what limits will the state? What are the reasonable moral limits that the states will put out there to say, like, okay, pot's good, heroin's not? And there are people out there who said all drugs should be legal all the time. I think people on this panel have said that, right? There are problems with enabling that kind of behavior because not everybody can take heroin in a safe manner.
Sure.
right? There is no safe amount of fentanyl, for example.
Yeah,
I got
have
a
classes
question.
for drugs. We have classes for drugs now, right?
If you believe that there should be a minimum moral limit, as you put it, isn't that what the job of the federal government is to ensure that is there?
No. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me about things about federalism, because it's not. I argued in my opening, it is not the federal government's place to make that call.
But you just argued that the state should have
with the
minimum.
Federal Drug Control Act. I don't think they had a constitutional framework they could work with. That doesn't mean that there isn't a moral problem associated with just letting everybody get fucking wound out all the time.
Okay, but you saying that we have a need to determine what that is sounds like we should just use the federal government to do that.
It's not for the federal government to make that determination. It's for the states and the people through their elected representation in those states to find out what is their tolerance.
Well, that's
so what if
lame,
I live
though.
in a
You
state where
recognize that there's a problem, but you're like, it's a different state. That's the same attitude of, well, if Bashar Assad wants to gas people, that's his business.
You don't understand. You don't understand federalism, so don't even.
It's relativism, dude.
Don't even try to straw man the argument. It is one state's ability to set its own rules.
Yeah, that's stupid.
That the founders guaranteed them with the Constitution.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Well, you live in America.
And I know people in Dylan's chat like rip on me, like
oh,
you're just doing the same old tired shit. It's the Constitution. It's 300 years old. Blah blah blah. Fuck that. It has a process to amend it.
But you just pointed out a fundamental flaw in your own argument. You just pointed out a fundamental flaw in your own argument is that there's no enforcement.
Wait.
In a federal republic system, there's nothing logically inconsistent.
I think Dylan is talking MPU. Noise canceling conservatives, man.
So Rhizome wanted to point out what he believed was a flaw. He didn't get to state what he thought was the flaw, so I feel like he should be able to state what he thought the flaw is.
Yeah, a minute ago, MPU in his own words said that we need to determine a minimum moral limit. I'm interpreting that as some kind of baseline where we're not going from one state with something that's legal there and we're getting fucked when we go to another state across the lines. We need to determine that limit. So in his own argument, he's saying that, well, we need to do that, but I don't want the government to do that. And so I'm wondering what other mechanism can we use to ensure that? And what's the issue with using the federal government to do what it's intended to?
State government.
Hear me now, believe me later. I did not say that it was the responsibility of the federal government to set that limit. I said there is a moral problem to try to figure out what should be made legal.
Right, and I'm saying the federal government solves that problem.
And what can the governors and what can these different bodies where these legislatures all get together for these fucking conferences that they do, that they can talk about the things that are on their horizon and they can sort of use that melting pot of ideas to figure out, okay, this is what we think we're going to do. This is why we think it's okay. Let's talk about it and then have the states work together to come up with a practical solution that can be more or less evenly applied.
But MPU in practice,
they want under the federal system, the fact that they can do what they want under the federal system is okay, but it makes more sense if they work in concert with one another.
MPU, the problem,
not being logically inconsistent.
Yeah, the problem with that, though, for your side, is that then you'd have states like Vermont just potentially legalize like heroin and stuff, and your argument would be, well, that they're a state, they can do what they want. That's kind of a problem. Now, my question to the broader panel here is, I think most people argued for full legalization. My question is, what do you do then about the fact that a lot of the hard drugs, like I'm for legalizing weed, but what you do about the hard drugs that actually have a very strong adverse impact on people, families, etc.? What is your argument for how to mitigate that? And why shouldn't the government have a role in there to protect people's lives and families from toxic substances?
Kevin, we already have a state that did that. Oregon already decriminalized all drugs. So we see that experiment playing out currently. And then obviously...
Yeah, and how's that working?
It just happened within the last legislative year. So we'll see in about 5 to 10 years when we can start getting actual data on it. I don't know. You seem like a reactionary. So I know...
No, I'm for decriminalizing drugs, but I'm not for legalizing heroin and shit. There's a big difference,
anyway,
right? So...
Yeah, I didn't say that, and that's why my argument was you decriminalize drugs and you focus on the drugs that you're talking about, the fentanyls of the world, the heroins.
What if the opiates are already legal?
Not the Well,
Kevin,
yes,
opiates are
like,
already legal. It's not that.
No. There's
No,
a,
but
yeah,
not
you're
like-
You
talking
guys are
about
all for
pharmaceutical.
decriminalization, right?
You're
So
talking
then they
about
would
Wait,
become
wait,
legal.
okay, I can't hear anything. Okay, please, can we all bring our voice down, please, when we talk? Okay, Kevin, you can respond to that, but I want to make sure Half Baked gets to
Okay.
finish what they were saying. Right down, Maple.
Yeah, so if the argument then is that they can be legal, but they have to be prescribed by a pharmacist, that's a little bit of a different argument under a pharmacist or doctor's
recreational?
supervision than recreational
Sure.
use of
Yes.
meth. And my question
I
is,
agree with you.
how do you mitigate, like, to the people that want to legalize meth? I'm not talking about decriminalize. I don't think you should go to jail for being an addict, but I don't think that the government should just neglect its population and let people get addicted to really harmful shit that can kill them and just what can we do?
No,
it's like, by that logic, then we should just legalize hitmen because there's a demand for it. It's like, no, some things the government should say no to. So.
Okay,
Kevin,
wait,
nobody
That's why we have a government.
Kevin,
Legalize
nobody is
nukes.
calling for
Baked.
that. Yeah, so nobody is calling for that. What we're saying is, or at least I'm saying is, yeah, decriminalize all drugs. Possessing any drug and criminalizing it seems to not, with punitive action, does not seem to have like positive results. However, I would not make the manufacturing and distribution of heroin, PCP, street level fentanyl, those fucking pills that they are make them look like prescription pills, but they're not. Like shit like that, I would make illegal when it comes to those types of drugs, typically Schedule 1 drugs. And then like you could legalize weed, you can legalize mushrooms, you can legalize the basic bitch shit that isn't going to kill people.
Right. Okay. Well, I agree with that. It's just there were people I heard. I forget who it was. There were a couple people that said legalize everything. I just want to know, how would you deal with addictions and whatnot? How would you protect people?
So I think it's really important to stress the fact that when you're talking about decriminalizing all drugs, you're talking about making like it just decriminalized, right? Like possessing it is a criminal act, and I think people possessing drugs is not necessarily something that really deserves like a punitive action. I think that there are other things that we have in place in society, like regulation for drugs. We do it really, really well with all like thousands and thousands of drugs. Like being a controlled substance doesn't mean we have to like punish people because they get caught with it, right? Like we don't have to take it out on the individual because for whatever reason they're in a situation where they're using that drug. And there are other ways to like take care of society and like drug use and so on.
Wait, but my question was, if you want to legalize meth, how do you protect people from the consequences of meth, right? Like if your argument is have it prescribed by a pharmacist, okay. But if your argument is let people to their own devices, that's a bit of a problem. My question is just the people that want to legalize everything, not decriminalize. How do you solve addiction and overdosing and
people that have like addiction and problems with like drugs are people that just have like mental health problems, right? So when people have like like the homeless, right?
Not
like,
always.
Other groups of people. Majority
not
of them
always. No, yeah,
no,
true.
Addiction
but
is a
sometimes
mental
people
health
just get
thing. Addiction is a mental health
41%
condition.
of homeless are mental health issues.
I'm pretty sure we just classify addiction as across the board as a mental health issue, though.
Yeah,
right?
It is. It absolutely is.
There's
Addiction
also-
is just
there's
a mental
also-
health
you can
condition.
overdose and die without
shows-
being addicted, by the way. That
Okay,
can
but
happen.
that's
also scientific
overdose is.
evidence that
Hold
shows
on,
that-
hold on. I
that's
didn't
not
even get
what
to
we're
finish.
talking
Wait,
about.
I can't. Wait, I can't hear anything. Okay, I believe that you were talking first. Maple.
Yeah, thank you. So to what Kevin was saying, overdose is something that's different than addiction, right? People that get addicted and have like an adverse impact on their lives, which is not necessarily guaranteed. There are lots of people that are addicted to drugs that do just kind of like make it through society and like make it through life. Addiction is something that's different than overdose, right? Like how do we protect people from overdose is a different conversation. We can have that conversation specifically if you'd like.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to get at, because my solution is just get rid of the supply, take out the cartels, and economically stimulate Central America like the Marshall Plan. Well, it hasn't been tried. The drug war in America has been just arrest dealers, but let the cartels do whatever the fuck they want in Central America because war bad. We can't go outside of our own borders. So that's not a practical solution. You're just playing whack-a-mole then. The dealers are not the problem. It's the cartels, the producers that are the problem. So, And America's never gone in and actually taken out the cartels. So.
Okay, I have a quick question for MPU. Doesn't the Commerce Clause in the Constitution designate the federal government the power over interstate commerce?
Yes.
Okay, so then shouldn't we decriminalize drugs at a federal level to ensure that we don't run against the Constitution?
Well, I think you have to go. I mean, you have to look at the history, right? For like the Prohibition Amendment, right? If the argument that the Commerce Clause, and this is what was actually used to pass the Drug Control Act, right? Legislators at the time, now understand that the Drug Control Act was passed by a overwhelmingly Democratic Congress 4 years after Prohibition was repealed. So it's not like this shit wasn't fresh in their mind, right? They thought that they needed a constitutional amendment to ban a substance across state lines, okay? And then they put another amendment out because they realized, well, this caused a lot of fucking crime and stuff like that, right? A lot of the arguments that people use about like legalization or decriminalization of drugs today is the same basic argument, right? But what do you think would have been the difference in thought that says, well, if we needed an amendment before, but we don't need it now, we'll just use the Commerce Clause? I'll tell you what it is that the Supreme Court, for FDR put a couple people on the Supreme Court and he got the court to swing his way. So they felt like, well, if it got challenged, they would be able to withstand a constitutional scrutiny based on an activist judge. Remember, FDR also tried to pack the court with 4 additional justices.
So the word of the Constitution is gospel until it runs against what you want, huh?
The Constitution is constitutional until it isn't. That's correct. Until it's amended or a law that's passed doesn't comport with it, right? Yeah, that's the way it works, Rizo.
So as far as legalization,
I have a quick question. Why is that funny? Why is the framework document that we use in this country that gives all law its authority? Why is that funny to say that if you don't like the law, change it?
Because you use the idea that you understand the intentions of the founding fathers as a whole foundation of the argument. You don't know the intentions, you just make them up when they're convenient for you, and we just showed that.
I don't know. I don't understand how. The Commerce Clause, first of all, is one of the most. The Commerce Clause is one of the most overused and under supported because of precedent, right? Because of what's gone on primarily since the 19-teens, forward. The Constitution, more laws in the Federal Registry are based on some bastardization of what the Commerce Clause actually does. The Commerce Clause was really meant to regulate commerce between the states, to say that Georgia couldn't put a tariff on Virginia's goods and vice versa. That's what the original intent was. After the Civil War, particularly after 1867, the concept of more aggregated power towards the central government saw the government justifying a lot of what it was doing by saying that, well, this is under the Commerce Clause, or the generalized nature of the general welfare, right? It's not explicit. Interpretations by activist courts have basically grown the power of the federal government.
So the interpretations you like are valid, but the activist interpretations are invalid
by activist judges unless they pass an amendment.
Rhizome, and this is why states a lot of times will have exemptions to their laws when you're just passing through them. So a good comp to this is carrying law, gun carrying laws. So if you're allowed to carry a weapon in your car as you drive. So if you're just driving through a state and I start in Ohio and I'm allowed to have my gun loaded in my car and I drive through Illinois and I'm just driving and I don't stop, they can't charge me with their state's laws.
Right, but there's no mandatory thing that says they should do that beyond what we have in the Constitution, right? So we should use the federal government for what the federal government was intended to.
No, we should use the state governments.
Yeah, they can do that if they want to, but we should also respect the Constitution. That's what I'm saying.
Well, No, you're
Do you know what the 10th
vehemently
Amendment is?
You're just like shitting on the Constitution with the first part of what you said.
You guys just have the specific interpretations that you think are valid, and then you
No,
have
I have the 10th Amendment.
the catch-all term activist interpretations for the ones you think are invalid.
No, I have the 10th Amendment. Here, I can send you one of these if you want.
Oh, that's cute. You have a pocket constitution.
Yeah,
Do you know what the 10th Amendment is, Rhizome? Or are you just going to laugh about it?
No, I know what the 10th Amendment
granted
is.
to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to the states or the people.
Mm-hmm.
So
how is this own?
If it's not a federal power, like I said, I don't believe the Federal Drug Control Act was constitutional, regardless of how it's been held. But if it's in fact not constitutional, it is not the purview of the federal government to do anything with respect to it, unless they pass an amendment.
Like, I just want to be clear about something. The argument about legalization, by the way, because I know that this will or has been brought up in the past and whatnot, is that, well, if you legalize all the drugs, then the cartels will just go out of business, so you don't need to deal with them. I just want to be very clear about something. This is actually a little bit of a point that I've kind of agreed with MPU on a little bit. The taxes on a legalized drug system in the US, likewise in Canada, would be so high with their implementation that cartels would still be able to operate below that margin, and there'd still be demand on the black market even if everything was legal. So I think the big point, I think the big point that's worth noting here is that you should not go to jail for being an addict, but the government should be doing things in its power to reduce the supply of dangerous substances, and where that exists, it comes from largely cartels. And the way that you deal with the cartels is you actually have to go to the cartels. And I would love to see, more conversations actually talk about, okay, let's go to the source of the problem instead of, oh, we arrested some kid who sold some drugs, or we arrested some guy who's an addict. How about we actually deal with the cartels that are ruining Mexico, ruining El Salvador, ruining Honduras, and actually get Central America to a wealthy, fully functioning economic level for trade and everything.
Cartels will just move to a different way of generating revenue.
Great, but they won't be in the drug business. And also, by the way, their heads of figures and stuff won't be there anymore. And guess what? That's not actually 100% true, because once you do a Marshall Plan style infusion of economic stimulus into Central America, people will just get jobs. They'll just be bankers and lawyers and stuff. They're in a fully functioning economy. They're not going to be, oh, the only way I can make money is to join a cartel. Mexico is where it's at right now because we just tolerate the continued existence of these cartels, and it hurts everybody. There's 130 million people there that have been robbed of economic opportunity because of a bunch of thugs basically getting America and Canada addicted to drugs and getting away with it because, oh, intervention is spooky, can't do anything. That's Mexico's problem.
The cartel is a product of government policy and of
corrupt government
of these economic situations. It's not the other way around.
Wait, no, but that's not true. The cartels in Mexico for the longest time basically controlled the government and the police and the military. So they answer to the cartels. So the cartels are the problem. It's not if there were no cartels in these countries, the path to full economic development would be a hell of a lot easier. And if you had economic stimulus in the way of trade reductions or restriction reductions, etc., you could get Central America up to a level where it wouldn't look that much different than Canada and the US. And guess what? You don't really see cartels in Canada. You don't really see cartels in the US.
You're going to get rid of these cartels until you fix the situations for the people in these countries. If you just
you have to do both.
They're just going to the vacuum will be filled by new cartels.
No, because you economically stimulate the economies, and now you have a government that's not beholden to cartels because the cartels just got completely blown to smithereens by the Air Force, basically, and the Army. So
they'll come back, and then
no, but they won't, because are there cartels in France? Are there cartels in the UK? Because you did a Marshall Plan there, no cartels. So if your argument is the poverty causes the cartels, then solve the poverty. Then solve the poverty.
That's what I'm telling you to do, and you're just like you're giving.
Well, yeah, but I'm arguing for Marshall Plan level spending to infuse into these economies. So,
MPU.
Yeah, but
I just broke your brain, dude. I just broke your brain. Now you're gonna have to think outside the box. So you want to win the war on drugs? You actually have to fight.
Evan, you made my argument. You need to stabilize these countries' governments so their economies can stabilize.
And why do you think they're unstable? It's because of the cartels. You take out the cartels and infuse the economies. Now you've got stable countries.
Can somebody else? I don't know. I'm just like it.
Yeah, I broke your brain, dude.
No, I promise you, you didn't. But you seem to be missing the point.
You're at a loss for words.
Yeah, I'll take it on.
Thank you.
We did the Marshall Plan in Central America, in Mexico. It was called fucking NAFTA. Okay, the problem
that was free trade.
Mexico has been a corrupt government led by corrupt politicians for decades, longer than the cartels have had the power that they have now. That stuff grew up out of actually Reagan, right? Reagan's war on drugs, right, with crack and all that other shit. That's where they really got their big giant foothold. NAFTA comes through, which was after Reagan, arguably, right? It opens up trade. We ship a lot of fucking jobs, a lot of manufacturing over to from Canada and the United States down to Mexico.
It was not a Marshall
Plan. A lot
Plan.
of people got rich.
It was free trade.
Not the working. Stop. Let me finish. A lot of people got rich, but it wasn't the working class. Okay. And then money just got siphoned off. And then money that was done through balance of payments, transactions and stuff never made its way to where it needed to be. And people had to bribe. Yeah, and you see this a lot in Moldova, for example. In Europe, it exists in other places, right? But you have to basically grease the skids to get anything done in Mexico. And that's money that's taken out of the process that can do anything. So unless you're willing, and I think it sounds like you kind of are, you sound like an interventionist that's willing to go to war at the drop of a hat. I think CTV would love to have you on his team in order to go make Mexico the 51st fucking state, right? I get it. Okay. But the practical reality is that
their sovereignty from the cartels.
They're a sovereign country.
That's
beholden. They are actually in bed with the cartels. The cartels own politicians.
That's a problem. And that's a problem. And that's a problem. You don't want to do anything about that. You just admitted that I'm right. That the cartels have corrupted the Mexican government. So there's 130 million people in Mexico that got fucked over by that, dude.
I want everybody
would you like to live
understand that I'm not arguing for interventionism in that respect, right?
I know. That's because you're a relativist. That's not my problem.
I'm not saying I'm saying it is a problem. I'm saying it's going to take cooperation between states, but it's not fucking just unilateral intervention. You don't just go take over a fucking country, Russia.
Why not? Why not? That worked in Iraq. That worked in Afghanistan. I mean, yeah, the coalition, but granted,
I think everybody would largely look at what's happened in Iraq and Afghanistan at least 3 fucking times and say that this has all been a failure, right? Interventionism on that scale
that would never have to live under Saddam Hussein and get gassed for being Kurdish. Sure.
Let's reel it in. I think that we're getting a little bit off topic now that we're talking about like intervening in Mexico a little bit from the topic of drug legalization. So I want to drag it in a bit. I want to give it to Maple, and then we're probably going to look at wrapping up because it seems to be the same 3 people that are like going like back and forth right now.
Yeah. So I think the conception that drug legalization and having like the correct like light level of state control is going to create some kind of black market that's still going to perpetuate the problems that we see is rooted in either just like a lack of education or lack of information on the subject. Cartels are probably going to exist in perpetuity, but if we take the correct actions domestically with regard to like drug policy and things like that, it'll hurt them. It'll hurt them in their bank accounts. It'll hurt their ability to influence things. It won't kill them. But I think that the idea that we should just like honestly, I think it's a great like meme talking point, but it's so fucking stupid to say like, yeah, we should just go take out the cartels. Like, how does that manifest? Like, what do? Do you drone strike them? I saw him memeing in chat. Like,
soldiers. You arrest.
I know you love to gish gallop and just like interrupt people, but could you hold your breath for like 30 seconds? I don't want you to actually hold your breath literally, but
told you.
Anyway, so no matter what your interruption was, like, there's no real feasible way to just like take out the cartels physically, right? Like,
You have
if
the largest military in the world.
Okay, that's still not an answer. That's still not. That's
It
an
is. That's the
illusion.
mechanism.
That's a mechanism, but it's still not going to be an effective means of doing so. Like,
Well, I disagree.
It's
And
really
I
interesting
think
to know
it's
how
true.
Canadian is so willing to deploy U.S. troops.
Oh, I'm down to send
True.
Canadian troops too. I'm down for a coalition. I'm down for the UN to do it if they want. They won't.
What
but
about
if
a
everybody-
strategic nuclear strike on the cartels? What do you think about that, Kevin?
yeah.
That'd be stupid. That'd be stupid. Completely overkill. Not needed. You just need a few guys to go in there, round up people. So.
What about like
It's a
cluster
question of
bombs? Like,
magnitude.
yeah, like what
Cluster
are we talking
bombs.
about
Oh,
here?
yeah,
Like,
let's just do war crimes.
thermal
Let's just do war crimes and kill a bunch of Mexican civilians. Great.
Oh,
Yeah, how about
based.
this? How about
Amen.
helping the people of Mexico and actually get their country back from decades of corruption? How about
yeah,
we
you know what's
might not
gonna
want to
achieve
just try
that
to
is
kill
just
as many of them in the
striking
process
We're gonna
as
nation build.
possible?
We're gonna
There's
nation
such a
build
thing
in
as
Mexico,
a
'cause that's worked
precision
out really
strike.
well.
There's such a thing
We
as
should report their
precision
Twitch channels.
forces. Such a thing as strategic,
We're gonna nation build
surgical.
Mexico back to prosperity.
Yeah,
That's
so
the
so
fucking
MPU
job of the
admitted,
people
MPU
of
even
Mexico.
admitted
Wait, one
that the
second.
Mexican.
I didn't admit shit.
Wait,
No, you admitted that the Mexican political system has been corrupted by the cartels. You admitted that, but you don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah, our political system was corrupted in the United States in 1775.
You're going to compare America to Mexican corruption. That's crazy. Okay, then I guess you wouldn't mind if you were born there versus in
No,
America.
I'm just
Same
responding.
difference.
I'm responding to stupid commentary with stupid commentary.
But you supported January 6th, or at least you minimized it, and you
I didn't.
you
I
did
know I didn't.
like you did
did not.
2020 memes. You did
Now
2020
you're just
election
being an
memes.
idiot.
No,
Did-
but the
I
people
did
can go
not
back in the
support January
VOD. The
6th.
people can go back in the VOD, and you were
What are you
talking
really
about how
doing here,
they
bro?
just did some things. Some people did some stuff, man. Yeah, they stormed the Capitol
No,
to
that's
try to
Ilhan-
take
that's Ilhan
hostages and
Omar.
execute the vice
No,
president.
I said there
So
were there were
course,
people that there
of
were
course,
people
you
on the
think
Capitol
you think
grounds
that's normal
who did
behavior, I
illegal
guess.
shit,
So I
and they
guess you
should
think
be-
the
and they
cartels
should
are
be held
normal.
accountable.
I guess
But
that's
that's
just
not really
normal
the topic we're
behavior.
talking
I guess
about, is
that's
it?
just normal behavior to you, right? MPU, it's just normal behavior, right?
You're talking
Just
about a
go in
freedom
there.
parade, brother.
Yeah,
You're
no,
just being an idiot.
unbelievable. Like imagine minimizing that, being like, oh, we called it an insurrection. Yeah, it's because it was an insurrection. Oh, they just did a thing. They just did some things. It sounded like Ilhan Omar back there, and now you're talking about how America's just as bad as
I
the
like
corruption.
I
in
like how
Mexico.
you
So-
used the meme I just threw at you. That's very good.
Wait, wait,
wow. Now,
No,
hey,
you
wait,
did.
wait,
No,
wait,
you
wait, wait,
did.
wait,
No,
wait,
you
wait,
did.
wait, wait, wait,
Two people can
wait,
say
wait,
that.
wait, 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 wait.
No, you-
I will no. I'm gonna put a line in the sand here. Meme theft is a heavy accusation, and you can go after people's
Well,
kids
accusing
if you
somebody
want.
of supporting an insurrection is pretty bad.
Yeah,
too.
meme theft is much worse. Much worse.
Yeah, meme
Unless
theft
it's
is
from your
pretty bad.
Discord, then it's okay.
Yes, exactly. If it's chat, it's something different. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's wrap this up. I think we're getting off topic again, so I think most people want to go to bed. And for everybody, I got an announcement to make, and I'm gonna play some music while I announce this. It seems someone's back. Vosh has on April Fools been unbanned from Twitch,
What?
and it's not a joke. He has been unbanned
meme.
from
It
Twitch.
would be so
And so
funny
I
if
would
they
like-
banned him again tomorrow.
I would like to
Vosh
formally
back. Vosh back.
announce
Vosh back.
that, you know, people are saying it, movers and shakers involved. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just saying he did kiss the ring when necessary. And now he's unbanned. Look, isn't that interesting? Now only 50% of former Hippie Dippy champions are banned by Twitch. I want to congratulate him for being unbanned. And I also want to say that this will be the last stream I ever do from this apartment. Ever. I'm out of this apartment
I thought you
forever.
were going somewhere darker.
And I will be going to Poland. So the next stream you see will either be me traveling to Poland and or me in Poland. So look for that in the near future. I appreciate everybody all the support I've gotten for the trip. There have been a million Ukrainian and Polish people who have reached out to me. At least over like 100 people have reached out to me in the last like 3 or 4 days. It's actually insane. A lot of them offering to do translations, some of them offering to do animations for the project, all this different stuff. Like a lot of like great stuff, and I appreciate all the support and all the well wishes from our Ukrainian viewers. We're now going to go into outros. Everybody shout themselves out, give any last second arguments if they want to. So I'm going to start with Kevin Castley.
Okay, thanks, Don. So Just kind of to wrap up this topic here. So I think it's clear tonight, based on the conversation that we had on this panel, that a lot of people said basically, yeah, full legalization or whatnot. But when I specifically posed the question of how do you then address addiction and the harm that's done to families, the destruction that's done to families, the only actual answer that was given was, well, some of these are already legal and they're prescribed. Okay, so if the solution is it's all legal, but in order to use the hard stuff, you have to be under the supervision and prescription of a pharmacist or a doctor. Well, that's an actual answer, and I appreciate that. And that was what Heem gave, or at least he said to some extent that was already in place. I appreciate that. But everybody else is kind of like, just people's rights, let them to their own devices. That's a big problem. That's a big problem, because you can be against putting people in jail for using harmful substances while also recognizing that they're harmful substances. And I think that part of the job of the government is to protect the population. And so I'm not on board with legalizing hard stuff. I'm on board with legalizing weed. And I think as far as actually reducing the harm of the hard stuff goes, at a certain point, because not everybody's going to be under the supervision of a medical professional, you do actually have to reduce the supply. And the only way that you reduce the supply is to actually target the cartels. It might seem a little bit off topic, but I think any conversation about legalization or harm reduction as it relates to drug abuse has to involve going to the source, not just, oh, well, arrest some dealers or whatever. You actually have to go and get rid of the cartels. But yes, they'll just come back if you don't do anything. You have to stay there. You can't just do Libya. We go in and we're gone in 5 days. You actually have to stay there for a while. You have to put money into their economy, Marshall Plan style. A free trade agreement like NAFTA, not a Marshall Plan. A Marshall Plan is economic stimulus. Free trade is kind of like, just leave it to their own devices, basically, and see what happens. Now, for my closer, basically, I'm Kevin Castley. I run the channel Superpower Broadcasting. I stream 7 days a week. Follow me on Twitch and YouTube. And I'm also on Twitter at Kevin Castley. And I do a show, Ghoul Gang Rising, every Saturday night with Spooky Nookies, where we dunk on the worst foreign policy takes of the week. We've had awful takes on Ukraine recently from people like Paul Joseph Watson, Kim Iverson, and other goobers and goblins. And so I'll be doing a post show on my channel on Twitch in about 20 minutes. So we'll be discussing my performance tonight. So be sure to tune in for that. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. And it's fun. Thanks for the invite, Dylan and Danimo.
Happy to have you here. Now I'm going to throw it over to MPU.
The question of whether or not drugs should be legalized or not, I think, was improperly decided by court cases after the Drug Control Act was put into place. That said, it was upheld as constitutional, so I think the reasonable way to get rid of it is to, by congressional acts, is to simply remove it. It effectively puts it back in the hands of the states. And I would think that before states choose to legalize or make possession or sale of any drug legalized that has a potential negative impact if it's overused, then I would think that the governors and the state legislature should work together to create reasonable policies that deal with both the mechanism and also the negative externalities that are associated with it, or like what, as Kevin was saying, what happens to the people who are caught up. The question of going after drug cartels because they're the ones that are doing it, that's really symptomatic. That's attacking a symptom. It doesn't fix it, because some new cartel will spring up, and if not those cartels for this particular purpose, those cartels will reform themselves into other things like human trafficking and so forth. There is no Marshall Plan that you can do to correct that problem in Central America. Technically Mexico is North America, but in Central America, or even South America, or even Asia, because a lot of heroin comes from there. And opium comes from Afghanistan. So the demand, as long as people are willing to do drugs, there will be somebody who will try to find a way to supply it to them. If the entire magic supply of magic mushrooms ended up, somebody would come up with an alternative, because that's just the way human beings work. So you need to try to minimize the negative impacts on society. And if it reverts to a state's right, then the states, I think, need to take a fair look at how they coordinate that stuff together so that they can minimize the amount of damage socially and physically to people if they make this stuff legal.
Okay, and they can find it at twitch.tv/Hasanabe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I stream on twitch.tv, the More Perfect Union. I'm also creating a technology-based show for hardware for streamers, gamers, and things like that. It's called MPU Tech TV. That's going to be firing up pretty soon. And Dylan, thanks. I always appreciate it when I can come on the show, and I appreciate generally most of the time I interview or debate with people. Kevin, I've not really talked with you before. I don't really like a lot of your takes. I think you're kind of overly brash and mean-spirited. Rhizome, you're just kind of
the feeling is mutual.
Well, Kevin,
but it is good to see him and Denims. I haven't talked to you for a long time either. So the rest of you guys, nice to see you all.
Yeah, I would say MPU is like most Denims fans. I'm gonna now throw it over to Rhizome.
Yeah, do drugs, be gay, do crime.
What?
Follow me at Rhizome.
What was that, MPU?
I'm sure she probably doesn't appreciate that slur you threw at her.
I don't think that's a slur. I think you're like her average, group of fans.
I don't even understand what it means.
And that's the best part of it. Throwing it over to him.
Okay, first of all, I want to say it's ridiculous that something can be completely legal in one state and you can smoke it and buy it and freely smoke it, and then in the next state you're getting arrested for it or some shit. I think that's ridiculous. I think Bill Clinton smoked it. My favorite president, Obama, smoked it. And there's no reason that it should continue to be, illegal. We can start there. We can talk about fucking legalizing heroin and shit some other day. It doesn't matter. As for the panel, Dylan, thanks for inviting me on. Good luck over there. I always love to be a tourist, and it's been a long time since I've been able to be a tourist and go travel. It's like going to Italy or something, and I want to say it's been great meeting some of you tonight, as my great friend Kevin Castley said, and getting to know and debate people and everything. And if you're interested in debating me, you can send me a debate request over on Twitter at the only heme. DM me and we can work out a time to debate. I'm always down to debate. I've got 40 debates on my channel and I'm looking for more debates. I love debates now. Okay, and yeah, that's all.
Okay. The interesting thing about that thing, heme, is after all there was the debate I had about the Poland thing and this trip, and there's been a little bit of discussion about it. What that ended up doing is having more people reach out to me to see how they could support the trip, Ukrainians and Poles. Specifically saying like, hey, I saw this debate or conversation you had or other people had on Chud Logic stream. I want to see if I can help out. One of it even went as far to say, hey, I could actually get you an interview with some people involved with the Territorial Defense Forces of Ukraine. So like, I would like to thank Wick for getting me all of my favorite interviews. I would like to personally thank him. I'm gonna now throw it over to.
Just be safe out there, okay? Be safe out there, Dylan.
I'll be safe. I will be as safe as I can be.
I don't want to see you picking up a gun and shit, okay? Promise us that. Can you look into the camera and say that right now?
At least on this trip, I will not be picking up a firearm. Yes.
All right.
Hopefully the next one.
Yes, the next one. That's Burma. Anyway, throwing it over to Half-Base Takes.
Well, like I said, I've beat this drum for far too long. I've talked for far too much on this shit, so I'll leave it at just decriminalize all drugs. I'm Half-Baked Takes. You can find me on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter at Todd from Half-Baked Takes. Dylan, stay safe out there. Appreciate you having me on. Danabo, wherever you're at, I think you're in the rafters somewhere. Thank you. Panelists, everybody, even if I was, if I came at you, all love. It was fun. And hit me up. I don't stream, but I do love having discussions with people, so would love to do it again in the future.
Wonderful. I'm now gonna throw it over to Denims.
I'm Denims. I do politics and other stuff. I think that drugs should be decriminalized. I think all of them should be decriminalized. I think we don't gain anything from criminalizing them at all. And yeah, I don't see why we should do anything about that. Yeah. Anyways, that's it.
Okay. Now I'm going to throw it over to our Maple man.
Come on, be creative. Maple.
Or a Maple. I don't got much left, okay? It's been a long night.
All right. I'll take it easy on you. So with regards to the topic, I think decriminalizing, legalizing work, light and medium state regulation, mixed with like mechanisms of the market means that we see a safer and better world for everybody. We get a shit ton of tax revenue. We get an opportunity to study drugs that can actually be applied in situations that we haven't because of like things like the war on drugs, like with mushrooms. I think if the stigma was in the rearview mirror, we'd be able to achieve a bunch of great shit that would just improve everybody's lives. And with regards to what about the cons of doing this, of like legalizing, decriminalizing, it would have been like, I think even like Rhizome mentioned this at one point, it would have been great to get into the nitty gritty of that topic. But sadly, like the entirety of this panel, the moment that anybody engaged with, I think his name is Kevin, if you said anything more than a 10-second bite, he would interrupt and hit you with some word vomit. So it kind of ran counterintuitive, or like it was not conducive to the overall conversation going anywhere. But also with regards to the outro, so I'm Bryce Live. I love shitposting on Discord and Twitter. I do it all the time. I'm banned from most leftist Discords and communities because I try to like show a little bit too hard, a little bit too much about capitalism and all the things that are great about democracy. But on my stream, we talk about like capitalism, why it's based, all kinds of philosophy, psych, econ, all that stuff. It was terrible meeting y'all. I had a terrible time, but I'm happy to be here in this space where I have so much in common with people, specifically the one main thing that I have no fucking idea what I was talking about tonight, but it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate Dylan having me.
Happy to have you here. I don't care if people have a good time. I just care if you all make me money, and you all at least accomplished that tonight. Thank you very much. You all have a good one, okay? Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good night.
See you, Dylan.
Have a
Good
good
one.
night. Hey, you. Yes, you. Right there. You. I am starting a Patreon. I know you guys have been asking for it on the YouTube crowd for a while, since usually it's just the Twitch people who could support me financially directly, but we're finally making a means for you guys to do so as well. And that's not all. You can support the #1 cyber terrorist, mover and shaker, Vince McMahon of Twitch politics. How? By donating to this Patreon and getting benefits like movie nights, special Discord roles, announcements at the end of the video of how much you have supported this war criminal Dylan Burns TV, and much, much more. Okay, not much more, okay? I only have limited means, but more than that, I can assure you. And if you support the Patreon, you will have my deep-hearted appreciation from the bottoms of my soul that you are truly a mover and shaker. Thanks so much for your Patreon money in advance. I will use it to continue to fund the liberal elitist agenda.